You're on.
Good morning. This is this is the webinar for HRPAY322 Payroll Administrator Training. It's a webinar, so I'll be looking to all of you for your wisdom. We're going to make this as interactive as possible, guys. So I will be going through the most commonly used concepts in PeopleSoft Payroll. We're going to review some of the integration that we talked about yesterday, provide an overview of payroll processing, and then go through where you guys will come in, where the benefits team will come in, where the HR team will come in. When I say you guys, I mean AOS administrators and AOS payroll administrators, GMIS supporting, and also how you will be interacting with the HR, SPD, and SPD, HR, and benefits teams. That being said, I'd like to, the ground rules, guys. We're all grown-ups here. Check email during breaks. Mute microphone if not speaking. Enter questions in the chat. But as today is a smaller group, so we don't have 270 some people trying to get in. Go ahead, stop me if you want to ask questions, but we are setting aside some time towards the end of the day today to ask and answer questions, right? Brandy's saying the sound is terrible. Can we please make sure everyone is muted? Can you all mute your speakers and your microphones?
You know what, Shiva, let's put this mic actually closer to you. That could be part of the problem because the main phone is down here.
Okay.
Brandy, is that better? Have Shiva speak a minute.
Yes, that's much better.
Okay, so the speaker's near me. Thanks. And as we say here in the slide, participate. You can turn on live captioning, apparently. Just hit the CW button. And then the training team introductions. I'm Shabana Rainan. I've been working with PeopleSoft, HR, payroll, time and labor, commitment accounting, interfacing between payroll and financials since about 1997, I think, a long time. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, if you can guess. But I've been with Accenture for a very long time, and I've been working with similar consulting firms before Accenture. So altogether, a seasoned person. On the phone with me are the training team, Latoya, Erica, and my partner in crime, Kofi Boateng. Can you guys introduce yourselves quickly? Erica and Latoya and Kofi. Latoya going first. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you, Shuba. I was allowing Latoya to unmute.
Okay. Erica, you want to go first? Introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I am the woman behind the scenes for you all. And just a little bit about myself. I've been doing this type of work for well over 10 years now. So I'm just excited to be here. This is round 2. Yesterday we had round 1, and I'm looking forward to the day.
Great. Latoya, how about you? She must be trying to get off mute as well.
Okay, I'll go then. There's Kofi.
Yes, I wasn't. Oh, go ahead, Kofi.
No, you go.
Go on, Latoya.
Okay, my name is Latoya Robinson. I have been with the center for quite some time. This is my first time working with the state of Indiana. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm going to also be behind the scenes like Erica. And I'm the OCM training lead.
Fantastic. Kofi, go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kofi Boateng. I used to work for Accenture for many years. I left and then I came back working with Accenture. So I'm part of the implementation team, supporting payroll activities, and I'll be helping with the demo activities today.
Yes. So and on the phone also, we've got Brandy, Elizabeth, and Judd from GMIS. You guys want to introduce yourselves very quickly, and then we can go around the room here.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Hammond with the Payroll GMIS team.
Well, this is Judd Richardson with the GMIS team.
And everybody knows Brandy.
And Brandy Newton with GMIS.
Thank you. And in the team, we've got, in the room with me, we've got the whole AOS payroll, and to my left, I believe, is Davis. You want to kick off?
My name is Davis Gray.
Good morning, everyone. It's Paula Hart. Christy Pache. Linda Evans. Jennifer Magnu.
Brent Plunkett.
Shannon Bay. Stacy Schneider. Missy Wolf. Cynthia Hicks. Jocelyn White. Lori Falkenberg. Teresa Eversole.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to payroll today. Without further ado, let's get started. The core audience is you guys, AOS payroll administrators, the senior administrators, the manager administrators. These are just names of the roles that have been provided by the security team. So it's basically our team, this team here. Also GMIS, HCM, and payroll support, and AOS operations if they want to join, AOS finance if they're going to be joining, and any GMIS finance support. We for the only reason the last three come in is because we'll be touching on the outbound interfaces, and we'll also be touching on what happens in the payroll end-to-end stream of events after payroll has confirmed, which is basically the payroll to finance integrations, right? So the cadence that we're going to follow is we'll review the overall payroll process, and then we talk about the different, as I kept saying yesterday, for those of you who were there yesterday, we are moving from a fairly unintegrated architecture. I'm not saying payroll system, I'm saying architecture, overall architecture, to a very closely integrated system, right? The payroll inputs are, getting into PeopleSoft, all the different streams of data inputs going into PeopleSoft payroll, how HR, benefits, time and labor, absence management, all integrated with payroll processing, and how any external information coming from agencies are loaded through various, what we call PSHUP loads into Paylines. What we can talk about the AOS, GMIS, SPD, agency payroll responsibilities, but then again, I'm going to look to you guys for input on what other discussions have taken place outside of the project, where you can establish the RACI and where, any open items still exist, right? We are still not sure about who's doing this particular thing, then we can document that and pick it up again for a sidebar conversation. Once we go through the end-to-end timeline for the end-to-end processing for payroll, and we'll then go into that I'm talking about the on-cycle payroll. We can talk about the off-cycle payroll, post-payroll processing, all the processes we run within PeopleSoft to get the checks and the advices, hitting the self-service views, and also hitting the banks and the interfaces to Wells Fargo, the interfaces to PNC, all of that we can cover. And Shannon, Paula, you've done this often enough over the last few years to chime in, okay? Let's make it as interactive as possible and make it's a webinar, not a training, and I'm not going to be the only voice you're going to hear today. The post-payroll will include interfaces with the accounts payable, some of the discussions we've had, what's still open in terms of accounts payable, and, some of the challenges we faced during testing with the data hitting general ledgers, the things that will devolve on you guys to watch out for, right? Some of the queries that we've been running to make sure that the data you're gathering here goes cleanly to financials. Is my voice coming through clearly for those on the phone? Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Great. So the sections here, section 1, overview of the payroll process, maintain the section 2, maintain payroll employee data, take a short break between 9:45 and 9:55. My watch didn't charge, so remind me when we hit 9:45. Got a clock right there. And section 3, end-to-end payroll processing. We have a break again at 2:30, and then continue with the payroll processing, and then off cycles, periodic regulatory reporting and auditing. Just to situate ourselves, we'll talk through the flows, how employee self-service, maintain, the payroll administrator core pages work, how the employee self-service will work once it's rolled out after we've established the state has gotten over the multi-factor authentication ironed out. And we'll talk about what you will be doing in the meantime. The actual step-by-step demo, I'm going to hand off to you, Kofi, so you can walk through the maintain time reported, the maintain payroll tax data, direct deposit data, and we can tag team on the garnishments. Any questions so far? Okay, so rather than drain this slide, I'm going to go through the flows that we've got.
Sorry, there's a lot going on.
What's that?
There was just a lot going on that slide, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Payroll is complicated.
I know, right? Payroll processes.
Up with this.
So the first section is payroll. We're going to be talking through the overall payroll overview. And just talk through at a high level, what are the payroll processes and the timeline, the State of Indiana HCM modules, key payroll concepts, and what the payroll administrator in the State of Indiana will be doing, which is all of you, basically. But it's different things by different people. So we just want to make sure that we understand what parts of the system will be maintained by this group, which is a lot of the payroll inputs, and how much of the processing they will fall on them, given that a great many of the processes are being held by the batch. Are we okay with this cadence? I'm going to tag team between the presentation and the checklist. Does that work? So, is this clear enough for everybody?
No,
No, it's not.
I can't read it on my computer.
How do we do this?
But some of us have seen this before.
Yeah.
So
You know what? I'll just go into the actual Visio. Make this a little larger. Is this better?
Yeah.
So overview, we've been talking about how PeopleSoft Payroll will be integrating with other modules. So in the new world, right, employees will be hired into HR. They will be set up by SPD. The way the system will work, and I've got some.
should that be larger on those screens, or my screen isn't updating, and I don't know if anyone else's is as well.
So
For the last few times she's changed the screen, our screens haven't changed.
Hasn't changed. we've been stuck on that one for a while.
Oh, it's because I need to share. I thought
There
this
you
was
go.
projecting.
There you go.
Better?
Yeah, yeah.
Gosh, technology, guys. All right. So where we are going to be working through this, let me start with HR. All of you are familiar with success factors. So employees will be hired through the candidate gateway in success factors, which is an external system, and it's not PeopleSoft, it's outside of PeopleSoft. An interface, and that's been running, it's not new, it's been running for many years. An interface brings the new hire information into PeopleSoft human resources. They are established in areas, workforce administration module, in submodules called personal data and job data. So these are that I'm referring to the centralized agencies. The decentralized agencies like state police and who else? Paula and Shannon, state police,
There's all, the judicial branch, legislative branch.
legislative branch,
IEDC.
and the DOC also, no, DOC?
No.
Okay. All of the decentralized agencies which don't come under the executive branch will be using, a submodule called Smart HR, Smart Hires, to get the new hire information and any transfers, any rehire information into PeopleSoft HR. So far, so good. Any questions so far? Where the inputs start from payroll is we're getting streams of data which are going to be partly coming from self-service. The state of Indiana wants to roll out self-service to all employees. Right now, they're having to work through some multi-factor issues before they can roll out self-service to employee self-service, not time entry, but employee self-service for personal data changes, HR changes, benefits changes, and also payroll changes. But when that gets rolled out, I have the inputs that are going into payroll. What I've done is split it into what will come from self-service into the PeopleSoft module. So if you look at this, these swim lanes here, you've got an employee swim lane, a payroll administrator swim lane. So the ideal picture when self-service is up and running is this is what we think will happen. Employees will be established in the workforce administration module in PeopleSoft, just as they have been doing for many years. It's not new. This is what you've been doing. The thing is, when it comes in through, we've got functionality in 9.2, which is called Smart Hires, Smart Human Resources, and the Smart Hire forms, a clip-on to a component called Manage Hire. You all can speak to that within the GMIS team. So we've got the interface coming from SuccessFactors to update the personal data information with the employee's address, personal bio, demo information, and it also updates the job data information, which is applied, assigning a position to the employee, and from the position flows things like the business unit, the department, and the company. What SPD will do, or what the decentralized agencies, HR personnel will do, is to go into the payroll tab on job data, and I can actually get to that. Bear with me. A visual is worth about a million words, and I'm capable of giving you a million words, but let's go, picture by picture. So throw some somebody other than somebody in this group. Any employee ID? Let's see.
Wiley.
Huh?
Yes.
She always.
Anybody. I'm just going to say Smith.
You can try. I have one. Super.
What's that?
I have an employee ID. It's 330
Yeah.
573.
You're the guy. Thank you, Kofi. Oh gosh, look who that is. No, I think somebody else, Kofi, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. Okay. Another one.
What's that? Yeah. No, don't give me the social, the employee ID or the name.
You have 705?
705 is you?
Yeah.
All right, that's okay, that's fine. I didn't want to show anybody here because you've got PII information.
Anyone else's number?
Kofi, you got somebody else?
Yeah.
Just pick someone on your list.
Yeah, that's right. Let's do that. Thanks. Thank you. I just picked somebody from the list. So what we expect the success factors will do is to get some information from wherever it is the hire is taking place in success factors. I won't drain this because this is not part of the payroll module, but I want to talk about what impacts the payroll module here. And then the information it will insert either through the centralized agencies, success factors, decentralized agencies, smart forms, updating personal data. When it comes here, the important thing for you to note is that as delivered by PeopleSoft, this particular address, the county information on the address field here is not prompting to an actual county. It's a free-form field. I'll make that. But as part of the project, the HR group wanted this to prompt to Indiana counties. So if you look at the lookup, you've got Indiana counties coming up, including without just the numeric counties coming up. What then this does, there is a customization here which goes into which uses this information, the county information, to update job data with the information that we call in a field called the tax location code. Before I get to the tax location code, I'm going to talk about all of the other information that will be updated in job data. I want you to hold on to this county information I just gave you. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background about how the system works. I don't usually, it's a little too deep for a lot of other audiences, but you guys need to know because it's a little bit of knowledge tucked away at the back of your brain if there is a little bit of troubleshooting you need to go. When we get into tax troubleshooting, etc. So this and the GMIS team are the only, people that be getting this depth of information. But what this does is, in job data, there are fields such as, and who's this person that we were looking at? Really? So when the SuccessFactors interface comes in for a new hire, right, it's going to, I believe, don't hold me to this, it's going to assign them to a position, and from that will flow the business unit, the department, and the company. And this guy looks like he's been terminated. From the company, you've got flows. I'm going to look at somebody else. Actually, Brent, if you don't mind too much, now that we've gotten out of personal data, can we look at you or Shannon or Paula or somebody?
Yeah, I'm 705.
Nothing's a secret with this group, Sheba.
What's that?
There's no secrets in this room.
I know, right? I know, right? So we've got Brent's position coming in, the company and the business unit flow from the position. When you tab to the payroll information, this is not something the success factors will be putting in. This is something that I think SPD puts in, right? I don't think it's coming from success factors, but I'll check that for you. The information here basically sets up an employee for being processed in PeopleSoft payroll. Every one of these fields provides the payroll system, the payroll calc, the payroll confirm, the whole entire payroll system with the cues as to how to pay this person. The company that Brent belongs to, sorry Brent for calling you out, is company SOI. In the new system, we are establishing 4 companies. Actually, they're the same companies you had in the past, but there are companies like, is that SGB?
ISM.
No, the new ones are ISM, LOT, SOI, and MVC.
Yeah,
But you had some in the past which are not used anymore.
we didn't, it was,
Does everyone know what those are?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about them in a minute.
Yeah.
So SOI basically is the company that each of them is identified by its own EIN, the federal, number. But we also have companies established for benefits processing where the employees there have their own payroll system, and they're set up mainly for direct billing for benefits. These are the 4 companies that will be going through payroll processing in the new world. So in this case, with the cues that we've got for who Brent is, he's been assigned to a company called SOI. He's been assigned to a position which is mapped to a company called SOI, right? In the payroll, on the payroll tab, an HR administrator will be putting them into the appropriate pay group, the employee type, and the tax location code. I'm going to talk about the pay group first. The pay group you belong to will depend upon who you are. Let's talk about the exceptions first, and then we'll come to the norm. The statewide STA is going to hold the majority of your population, right? But if you just take out all the people that we have set up with specific processing needs that we have portioned out into smaller pay groups, the remaining all go into STA, the statewide pay group. Any questions on that? The company and the pay group are critical elements in payroll processing. Any payroll table that you query off will be keyed by the company, the pay group, and the pay end date. Make sense so far? Okay. The pay groups we've created are, for company SOI, which is your biggest company, we've got a separate group called for the board members and AmeriCorps. And those are self-explanatory. We don't know, I don't think we need to go train about who they are. CEX is, we've got, the description is Excise and Conservation Office. It just includes the DNR, ATC folks, Excise, and gaming, correct?
all the officer groups that are not state police.
Yes. The DBQ, ignore that for the time being. We've got DBQ this DBQ assigned to as a company SOI is coming from your previous system, your 9-1 system.
Those are, we can ignore it totally. It's not anybody that we pay.
Yeah, correct. JUD is a pay group for the judicial branch, the judges, the prosecuting attorneys, and the magistrates.
All judges that are paid by statute, so Supreme Court justices, State Court of Appeals, anybody that we know is INJP, right? Also,
But not their staff.
not the staff,
Right.
just the statutory.
Yeah.
Right. And then we've got the National Guard, the legislators, and the OTH. The other is basically interns, inmates, and that's really all there are.
Yeah, there's patients and
Patients.
students. There's one other,
Interns.
Horse Racing Commission, which we're now,
I think of it as the three I's: inmates, interns, and
not interns.
not interns,
There are students, PIN products, patients, offenders.
and the incarcerated. The
Those are inmates.
Yeah, inmates. Okay.
Really those three groups. And back in the BRD group also, just so you know, currently Horse Racing Commission has a group of people that fall in that same OTH, but we're moving them as part of conversion, and they will no longer be paid through time and labor. So they'll be paid just like a board member. They'll use the C3 code, which is what the AmeriCorps group uses.
Right. So I've digressed a little bit from the overview. I will go back to the overview in a minute, but I just wanted to establish that the two critical pieces of information are coming from success factors or from the smart HR forms, which are inserted by the decentralized agencies. The remaining pay groups they will be assigning people to are SPC and SPU, are both state police. The SPC are the state police civilians, and the SPU are the state police uniform, the law enforcement folk. And SRJ are the senior judges, and STA, as I said, is the catch-all, the statewide pay group for everybody else. All of these are attached to a company called SOI, that is the umbrella company. You also have other companies called LOT, which has got one pay group called LOT, which has already been in existence for a while. And you've got the Motor Vehicles Corporation, which has got its pay group of MEC, which has also been around for a while. And then you've got the ISM, the State Museum, which has also existed as a company and a pay group in the existing system in PeopleSoft, so that no changes have been made to those three. But we have retired pay groups that you used in the past, like PYA, PYB, PYC, and all the PY pay groups have been retired and have been bubbled up. The populations have been moved into these new pay groups. Now, all of that is still part of the overview, so I'm just going to bring us back to the overview. The process as a whole will have you all, looking at, let me go back here. So when employees are assigned to these companies and pay groups in PeopleSoft, your biggest input into establishing them in payroll has already been done through the interfaces. Once they are hired into PeopleSoft, there are other pieces of information that need to be entered, like their whole tax information, federal, state, and local, setting up their tax information, setting up the direct deposit information, setting up their any additional payments that they need to get, and also assigning them to pay groups, which will give them, like you do on the job data page I showed you, they are assigned to the pay group just here, pay group STA. This holds together the information that on what kind of an employee type they will be, what kind of a holiday schedule they will have, what kind of a pay frequency will be assigned to them, what kind of an earnings program will be assigned to them, and what is the source bank that will take all their monies, right? I want to go to the setups a little later, but I want to talk about, just to finish this conversation, about all the payroll inputs that flow into PeopleSoft payroll. Just keep in your mind the information are provided about the personal data and the job data. One thing for state of Indiana, and for this state of Indiana setup that we've done, on the personal data, right, I showed you the county information field, and I said that the county information has been customized to prompt to, where are you? Where is the county information? There you go. This county information, this prompt has been customized to prompt to your counties, Indiana counties. What that does is when an employee is established there, we've got a custom piece of programming, a people code, which updates the tax location code on PeopleSoft. And when an employee is new hired, it also establishes the county in the local tax data table on the PeopleSoft payroll side. All of this is HR side of the information. On the payroll side, on the employee tax data, it establishes the preliminary row as soon as you're hired. Then after that, you have to put in all the other information that goes into this. The first row that goes into your employee tax data table when you're a brand new person, that has been established by the tax location code, which maps to your county of residence. In Indiana, you're paid by the county of primary residence. You're not paid by the in many of the other installations we worked at, the tax location code could be your work location. In Indiana, you're taxed by the county of primary location. Yes.
So if you're for the group, if you're an out-of-state employee, what
Oh, that's
will show
much
up?
a deeper conversation.
I'm just saying, what shows up right now shows Morgan, right? That's
Yeah.
the county I live in.
If you're an out-of-state person, it'll put you into OTH.
Yeah.
And OTH is a whole new can of worms.
Well, no, I just want to make sure everyone knows that when
Yeah.
they see the county, this is really.
Yeah, because you still have to, go through the process of taxing them and everything. Right. So, I will go into the setups of what this tax location code does a little later. And Kofi, feel free to chime in here when he goes through how you're setting up a person in federal, state, and local tax tables. He will talk you through that. But I want to bring us back to the overview. And in the overview, right, the primary pieces of information are already established. What the employees, once they get established in PeopleSoft as a new hire, they will be provisioned for self-service, and the provisioning will allow them to use fluid employee self-service, which is, I'll show you that in a minute. And they will be able to update their self-service pages for the W-4 and the WH-4. In the past, PeopleSoft did not have a self-service form for the state withholdings, but in probably the last couple of years, they've introduced the state withholding form, and they will also be setting up their direct deposit information and the W-2 consent. So all of these items of information will be done in PeopleSoft. In this flow, I've got some information on, is this a direct deposit change? If it's the first time you're setting yourself up in direct deposit on the self-service page, it is a change. If you're setting yourself up as a W-4, the default information in PeopleSoft will come from this whole establishing you in personal and job data I talked to you about, and I'll show you the pictures in a little while. But initially, it will be something that they change, the updates to how much an employee wants to take by way of allowances and exemptions, and is he a single, is he married? All of those are not automatically selected by the success factors. That will be something that he puts it in through the W-4 form. If until the point where we roll out MFA and we roll out the self-service, this is going to be something that this team will be doing, right? So payroll administrator. And in a short while, I'll ask Kofi to talk us through that, but I want to go through the agenda first. So the inputs continue. This is part of the overview. And the whole topic that in section 1 is how are we gathering the payroll inputs? Where are all the inputs coming from? Inputs are coming from pay group, assignment to the earnings program, which make you, Brent, eligible for certain earnings, which are part of the earnings program. And I will show you how that setup works, the whole structure works. Taxes, we are setting you up either to the default line that's coming through the county information, to the initial setup information, and then you will be using your self-service forms to add in, whether you're single, you're married, all your the exemptions, the allowances, any other information you're going to put into the federal, state, and local tax withholding to determine what taxes are taken out. And then direct deposit information, how are we going to pay you where are we going to direct your net pay? And there's a lot of complication with that also, complexity with that, not complication, with that, and I'll get into that a little later. Some of the changes that are coming in, we also need to have any additional payments that are not going to be coming from time and labor and are not going to be coming from agencies. There are additional payments that will come from a functionality called additional pay. Oh, that's so imaginative, isn't it? But people saw additional payment coming from additional pay, and Brent doesn't like it, but we call it addle pay. So the only two payments that we've got set up there, that additional pay is for regular, consistent payments for every payroll period. Those are the other pay inputs. To continue the conversation with the self-service inputs, these are the payroll inputs you'll be doing through employee self-service. You will enter your direct deposit information, you will update your W-4, federal, and your WH-4, and you will be consenting to receiving your W-2s electronically. I've got little gold gold boxes here. They're part of this presentation. So if you look at the gold boxes, it will tell you the Indiana specific information, and it tells you that in contrast with the existing system, employees will be able to go up to 4 accounts, direct deposit accounts. The state and local taxes, you will be using your W-4, WH-4 information, and then voluntary general deduction. Since this, I've added a little notation there. The voluntary general deduction in self-service will not be used by your employees. I believe we decided after we did the flow that they would not be using it through self-service. And I'll go to the manager part of it also, the payroll administrator part of it also. One of the other changes with respect to how the system will work is we are introducing prenoting, which is basically, since you're using, employee self-service, employee self-service direct deposit, the system will validate your routing number. The system will validate your routing number against the banks in the system. It will make sure that the number of characters that you've got when you enter the routing information is standard ACH routing numbers. The actual routing numbers, because we've loaded the bank table, will validate against your bank table. But your account number, you can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the system is not going to stop you. So that's why we've introduced the prenoting, because we're rolling out employee self-service. I might decide, holy cow, I don't remember my account number. I literally look at my checkbook to remind myself of my routing number and my account number, because I don't have it memorized. You might put a placeholder because, the provisioning people are telling you to set yourself up in employee self-service. You might put your just a placeholder number there, but it's going to bomb when it goes over to the bank. To stop that from happening, we are introducing the whole prenoting system. The prenoting, we've got it as a default of 10, it's going to change to 5 days. We're giving you the time when you, as an employee self-service person, enter your direct deposit credentials on the employee self-service form. It flags the system for prenoting on the core tables. You will not have access to the employee self-service forms, but you will have access to the employee pay data, which is the payroll administration routing. And I'm going to show you all of that. Now, these are the main inputs coming from self-service. And then, what did I do? What did I do? Okay. So the rest of the overview, these are the two major inputs. when an employee updates his direct deposit and tax forms, they save to code tables where the pages can be updated by you. So if employee Brent comes and says, I've added 1234 as my account number, it's too late for me to go back and change. I'm not able to get back. For some reason, the self-service is not allowing me to get back in. They will come to you and they will ask you to update the form. Until such time as the MFA, oh gosh, until such, I'm going to drink some water. I'm drying out. So until such time as the employee self-service is rolled out, the current process of providing you guys with the forms with let's say a new hire is established in the system as soon as we go live, right? Then the existing process of coming to you with the forms, giving you the forms will continue.
Correct.
The tax forms and do you want to talk to that for the second?
We've already talked about it. I think they're aware that we'll continue to get the direct deposit forms and tax forms. The only difference is today they don't actually send us the WH-4, but they will in the future. So we'll be entering both of those tax forms.
Right. And we, right now, I think Brent knows more than all of us about when the MFA is scheduled to roll out, but we don't know.
I wish I knew. Soon, soon.
Because that's part of the, one of the wins that you've got in the, giving the employee command of their own system. On the payroll administrator side, you've got pages that only this group will be accessing, in the sense you can go in, you can update their direct deposit information, you can update their federal, state, and local tax forms, and you can also update their employee general deductions, you can update their additional pays. And if I go to the next flow, you've actually got all of everything that's being done by the administrators. So here I've got a much more a much more comprehensive flow. Direct hires, what I just went through a few minutes ago. You have direct hires into PeopleSoft. You've got hires into SuccessFactors. I walked you through how that's going to update personal information and job information. I walked you through how the employee is going to be set up in the pay group, which makes them valid for the payroll system, right? And that's the key thing, that payroll tab I showed you on job data, right? So this is critical. This page is critical to your establishment. The first piece of information that tells the system what you're going to be, where you are. You're in business unit 50. You are in this department. You are in this company. That's established from the fact that you, Brent, are assigned to position number 383. That flows a lot of information into job data. If the company is not correct, then the payroll tab, which is hooked, this pay group is hooked to the company. It's associated with the company. In PeopleSoft Payroll, everything is going to be driven by the updates to the job data information. It wasn't that connected before, but yesterday I talked about the Lego pieces being all interconnected, and in this case, payroll is heavily dependent on the modules. You're looking worried now. See, don't look worried. Take charge. So in PeopleSoft, with the integrated system that we were rolling out, everything is interconnected. So you have to be established on this page to be eligible for payroll, and also to be eligible for absence management. I'm not going to get too deep into absence management, but in those groups, remind me here, Paula, which groups are not going to be working through absence management? That is, the legislators are not going through absence management, right?
Yeah, anybody that's not paid through time and labor, basically, board members,
National Guard, legislators,
National Guard.
none of them are going to be, okay. Those are the people who will have,
anybody paid by statute, sorry, those
Yeah.
folks will not be at absence management.
yeah. So those people will be set up as other on the absence system, but all of you, most of the people coming through time and labor are going to be set up as absence management. And these are just the critical inputs that we are going to be establishing through these different flows of data, one from SuccessFactors, one from people like Pam Douglas and State Police, submitting a smart form to establish her employees in personal data and job data and tax data and direct deposit data. All of these will set you up for payroll processing. And if I go back to my overview, I keep digressing because a lot of theory and not enough visuals, so I just keep going back to the visuals. But I want us to make sure that we get through these overviews very quickly. So when an employee, the HR administrator, as I said, can look at self-service information, which is coming here. All of this little box is detailed out in the previous flow. When you look at these boxes, you can see that all of the self-service information in the second box is rolled up into this box 5. But then you've got other boxes which tell you about all of the different information coming from different streams of data. All of this is done by employee plus the HR administrator plus the payroll administrator, where in the mix you also have the benefit administrators. Your Christie, if you look at box 4, for example, you've got the Christie Tittle team assigning an employee to things like a benefit program. And in the same job data information, you've got, the benefits team, Jennifer Peschke, Stephanie, and all that whole group will assign you to your benefit program. From the benefit program, all your benefit plans you become eligible for a bunch of benefit plans and bunch of benefit deductions, and all of your BAS group IDs will provide the rules for how you're going to be processed in the benefit administration module. So what I'm trying to say here is every little piece has to work for payroll to be correct. And the information I'm giving you to just toward the back of your head is something wrong with benefits, reach out to Jennifer Peschke, reach out to Christie Tittle's team. Something wrong with the job data setup. The administrator tells you that she's not able to pull somebody up for setting them up as STA. That means the company is wrong. The company that was brought in, when they assigned the position was attached to the wrong company. Troubleshooting tips. You have to back end into where the data is that's causing a problem with payroll. And pretty much payroll is, within the HCM system, payroll is the last station, right? HR has to work, benefits has to work, time and labor has to work, absence has to work, everything has to work for payroll to work. And any piece of data can go missing. So I need you guys to be wiser than the wisest, because when SPD comes to you and says, I can't pull this up in a particular company, on a particular pay group, it's because the company is wrong, or it's because something else is wrong. And then there are other setup items that I'm going to talk to you a little later when you come to the job data piece. But what you do on job data and personal data will impact pretty much everything that happens downstream with the employee. Still on the payroll tab, one more piece of information, and then I'm going to go to the rest of the flow. Employee type, very important. In PeopleSoft, we've got a bunch of salaried employees. We've got what we call exception hourly employees, and we've got hourly employees. These are new concepts for you. The salaried employees will be paid by whatever is set up on the compensation tab. In job data, the compensation team with Christie Hall, and her team will be updating the compensation when a person is hired. You see how many people are having their hands in the system for payroll to work, right? So this compensation also has to be correct. And then on the work location tab, we expect the success factors slash, I'll have to check with, I'll have to check with Sally on this. I don't know if Sally's listening in. But the success factors and the, and the direct, hire people will be set up also with standard hours. And the way the salaried employees are paid are based upon the standard hours and the compensation set up on the compensation tab. But the compensation tab also drives how a time and labor person will be hired. I mentioned this yesterday very briefly, but when a person is set up on the payroll tab as an exception hourly or hourly, you have to be set up for the 32,000 employees. You've got a population of 35,000 something people. You're cutting close to 35,500 or 35,000. Keep me honest here. How many checks do you got? Of that, 32,000 are coming from time and labor. They get their hours paid in time and labor. They have to, like I was saying over and over and over yesterday, they have to report their time correctly. It has to be processed in time and labor for you, for the hours to flow into pay sheets and getting paid. That will be worked on when they have E, exception hourly, or H, hourly, set up on this tab. The way the time and labor will work is to rub out from the pay lines, and we will show you the pay lines. It'll rub out the standard hours that are coming from this tab right here in job data, and it will replace that with time and labor hours. 37.5 will go away. The employee could have worked 36.5 and some leaves, or the employee could have worked like 40 hours plus and getting overtime. So these hours will go away for time and labor people, and it will be replaced by the time and labor hours that have been approved. Make sense? And then the way a time and labor employee is paid is basically your compensation, your biweekly rate prorated down to an hourly rate multiplied by the time and labor hours. The way the salaried employee works is going to be your rate, your biweekly rate multiplied by your standard hours. But the salary just comes into, for a salaried person, it'll come into the pay lines. Again, I will show you the pay lines, and it will be, defaulted in with an OK to pay. That will allow you to be processed through the system. And you're kind of starting to get familiar with the OK to pay concept, etc., right?
Shubha, I think that the salary for us is not really looking at the hours. They're getting paid that top rate, period.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so it's sort of like the
They're
officials.
every elected
Right,
official.
it gives you the biweekly payroll, but it also defaults in your standard hours there into the pay line.
But it's not based on what those standard hours are, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're just getting that comp rate.
Right.
So if the standard hours are not correct in job data, that's gonna mess with the exception hourly and the hourly
Yeah.
calculation.
Well, your time and labor will have to replace that.
Right.
That's why you kept saying, if you're a time and labor person, the time and labor has to be correct. Exception hourly and hourly people will have their standard hours wiped out by the time and labor load. So if their time and labor load is going to wipe out your standard hours, the time and labor load has to be correct. I put the fear of God into you now. Okay. What are the other things we're going to be talking about? Let's go back to the overview here. So I said that all of these inputs will come into the core payroll tables, which is basically your employee pay data tables, which I will show. I'll walk you through in a minute. And additional pay, when pay sheets are created, we've got other tables here like additional pay and general deduction data. Those are all set up also in the employee pay data tables. I'll be demoing that in a minute. And so the way the flow works is self-service flows into the core tables, and that's something you want to see. Flows into the core tables, which is your core direct deposit and your core tax tables, and they are picked up. Additional pay flows into pay line. The additional pay is set up by you guys. Nobody else will be setting them up. And the general deduction data will not be set up through self-service. You own that. You're the only people who will be setting up general deduction data and additional pay data. And all of this will be picked up by the payroll calc to pay the employee. So the inputs are mainly a pay group assignment, the earnings for program, which is attached to the pay group assignment, which gives you access to certain earnings codes. And your pay group assignment will be done in job data. It has to be correct. Your exception hourly or hourly setup will drive how time and labor treats you if you're a time and labor person. For a salaried person, you'll be paid your biweekly salary. And for any people who are exception hourly but not coming through time and labor, like your statutory employees, will be loaded externally through what we call the PSHUP loads. And that Shannon is going to walk us through that. What's that?
The legislators?
Legislators, National Guards come in through an inbound. They're coming through an interface inbound. I'm going to walk you all through that when I go through the checklist.
Sheba, would you mind hopping back to the job?
Yes.
The page and showing them the, FICA, or the subject, so they know where.
Right. So the other
That's
piece
there
of
as well.
good reminder, because I forgot to talk about that. Now, you want to talk to that? With the FICA status, that is actually updated by the administrator, right? The HR administrator. I don't think that's coming from Secus.
Right, I think it's defaulted always to subject. Right.
Yeah.
And then if we need to make a change, we will, but I just wanted them to see that that's where that's coming from.
Right. So your FICA status, whether you're going to be subject or exempt or your, Medicare only, look at the values here. And can you speak to that? Who will be the people who are Medicare only?
Yeah, it's the, state police officers
Right.
would be Medicare only, so.
And you've been doing a lot of the flipping. She's been updating it for a certain.
Yeah, through the Smart HR
Yeah.
form, and then, all the LTD, employees on LTD, we have to make that change as well. Here.
Right.
Or visas, and that's what, I did just talk to, Marcy at SPD the other day, just trying to find out where that's stored, how do they know? And it sounds like it's a manual process for them too, so we should continue to get the documentation that we get now in the future. They said that they're tracking the expiration dates. I've never been told in all the years that I've worked here that somebody's visa has expired, so I'm not sure how accurate that is, but,
But then there needs to be a conversation again between you and
yeah.
SPD staff, because they won't know automatically. When
They
to change
do
it.
know when they track it.
They
Yeah.
track it.
And they send us the forms now, so they will in the future as well.
Okay. So that's captured in job data. Good call there, Shannon.
That's
So-
the question.
Sorry, so when someone transfers from SP to whatever, will that automatically flip, or do we need to flip it?
Oh, we'll have to flip it.
Okay.
It'll be queries we run every pay to try to be capturing now. But you can't just go in here and flip it, there's a Smart HR form that we have to fill out, that will update or not fill out, but complete.
Can everybody hear that? Did everybody hear? On the phone, could you hear that? Thank you.
They're like, we don't care.
I just wanna make sure everyone can hear it.
The ones that are on LTD, what would theirs be? If it defaults to subject, what's
It's exempt.
exempt, and then visa people?
Exempt.
Thank you.
So any questions on these flows? I've talked about employee self-service. I've talked about the information that's coming from the administrators, like the general deduction and the additional pays. And then all of these will then be picked up by the payroll processing when pay sheets are created. Just a little bit of extra information here. In the third flow, I've talked about all of the other inputs that we're going to get. So far, I've talked about job data and the compensation, one input. The employee's assignment to the pay group, which gives them that access to, the employee's compensation coming from job data, employee's county information, which gives you the preliminary tax data information, self-service inputs, additional pay, general deduction, and I've also talked about self-service time and labor loads. There are other loads that are also providing input. So you see how all these different cascades of data are flowing into this tank we call payroll, the pay line. And that tank has been living, these people have been living and breathing and analyzing that tank. Don't look so happy, Shannon. So you've got an inbound interface to load the National Guards because it's not predictable. I was initially thinking we could put them on additional pay and flow them. They're not predictable. The numbers change, the payments change, pay periods. So we've got an inbound interface to read the file from the Adjutant General's office, load it to pay sheets. There are also files coming from agencies with bonus ASB and all your governance bonus and all those bonus information coming in. This is a little old. We're not using rapid pay sheets, but we're using a form which is being updated by other loads that we call PSHUP loads. And the PSHUP loads we've been loading for board members, for legislators. We're loading their money in because you're paying them twice a year. Your main salary for the legislators is coming twice a year. The first paycheck in January, and the first paycheck in February. If we set them up in additional pay or we set them up as salaried, we're going to be paying them every pay period, and we can't. The only thing we can pay them every pay period is per diem, and I've been told that the per diem is never a consistent rate from.
And they're saying that on patient loads.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're sending their salaries on.
So I'm just explaining, all the streams of data that are going to be coming through PSHUP loads.
Yes.
So as a recap, and then the last biggest item of input are the time and labor loads, which bring in regular time, overtime, comp time. All of your absences from absence management are coming through time and labor. That's your biggest flood, right? If your payroll is your storage tank here, you've got the compensation coming from one direction. You've got your earnings eligibility coming from a different direction. You've got standard hours for, which is used as a baseline. And then you've got the salaried information coming from compensation. You've got PSHUP loads for certain specific populations. You've got inbounds for people on long-term and short-term disability and your National Guards. And you've got loads, the PSHUP loads for legislators and board members and who else, and all the governance bonuses and all of these bonuses. But all of these are trumped by the fact that the time and labor will bring in. For 32,000 people, the time and labor will bring in on the payroll Monday and Tuesday a flood of information of regular time for the majority of your population. All of this needs to work correctly for you to work, for your lives to be easier. And that's why I'm giving you all of this information. Now, the payroll overview of payroll processing. I'm going to walk you through the checklist in a minute. But the payroll processing, the first things we do, and we've been doing a lot of that by playing the batch, as also manual updates by Shannon and Paula, and testing with this. You run your pre-sheet audit, look for all errors in all of the data setup by the employee. You create your pay sheets, load your pay sheet transactions, which is your PSHUP transactions, load time and labor, run your pre-calculation audits, run PayCalc, and then run your payroll error messages at every stage in my checklist. I've asked you to run your payroll error message report. We also have that same report. What is wrong with me? We also have a query of pay messages. Why do I give you a PDF and a query? It's because I like Excel, and you can filter and you can sort and you can pull out pieces of information, and you can you can do accounts, you can do all kinds of things on Excel. So you've got a pay 11, which is pay 011. keep that in your mind, is the pay sheet, payroll error message report that I'm asking you to run after every process. But I also give you a query which you can run, and Shannon has run that. I will show you how that will be run in the past, when you go live, so that you can also look at that. And then once you've done your calculations and you've validated the information, you've got your pay confirm process. Payroll processing as such is straight line, create your pay sheets, calculate your pay, run your time, run all your loads, get the data in, calculate, confirm, run your error reports, and balance and reconcile, clean the data. It's the complexity in your life is coming from the data, the stream of data that's coming from 100 different places into this tank, into the pay line, which is the tank. So that's where your complexity is, and that's why I'm spending so much time telling you, in advance, you'll have to look out for these things. So the payroll administrator and the payroll loads, all of these are, this swim lane is basically technology. It's all, because there's a COBOL program which loads the time, and even these PSHOP loads, they're all COBOLs, they're all programs which are loading things. And the National Guard, the JWF, it's all again, done programmatically. It's an inbound. The manual process here is basically you're getting, and keep me honest here, Shannon and Kofi, is just getting the Excels together, the templates that you're going to be loading. The payroll administrator is going to be basically watching. Again, a lot of this is technology, and that is going to be a batch process. I'll explain to you when the batch runs and how it runs. The batch process will be running many of this, but your team will also be running many of these processes. I think the actual processing to continue what the batch has been doing is going to be basically Shannon and Paula, and your roles will be doing most of the processing. So if there is batch and done the calc in the morning, you want to run some calculations in the middle of the day, it will be you processing. Okay, and then that's basically the end of payroll processing at the manager level. So the payroll administrators, you will be looking for the results of the various processes. You'll be analyzing the pay 11, you'll be analyzing the audits, you'll be reaching out to the agencies to tell them this data you got to fix right now. So that's going to be a big part of what you do on a payroll processing Monday, Tuesday, probably. So is that the timeline you're thinking of, Monday, Tuesday, when you'll be reaching out to the agencies and the pre-sheet audit is showing, rubbish and
even Friday before.
So your timeline, I will go through when I get to the checklist. So this is your on-cycle payroll, and I'm going to, that's your regular payroll processing. We just went through that in a minute, just a second ago. And it's basically what I said here, review all the self-service items. Then when you get to the actual payroll processing, you're going to be, creating your self-service direct deposit and check information. That's also going to be done by the batch, but you might have to look at any complaints that you get on a Saturday. Is this all the connectivity making sense to you all? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the flows are there. They're part of the presentation. You will take, I've spent a lot of time giving you the overview since you're not new to this process, but you will be basically creating the processes. The batch will be creating the direct deposit information for the file, the direct deposit information for viewing on self-service. So by the time you go through this payroll processing that I've just described to you, on the Monday to Friday payroll processing week, on the Friday night, you will be running, the batch process will be run to, controlled by the GMIS, the tech team, the batch team. They will be running the self-service paycheck information, but the self-service direct deposit. They'll be running the file, that's ACH file. They'll also be creating the file for the Wells Fargo, the check warrants file. And your process is here. You'll be, if you find errors in the information, you'll be, I think this is a little review and view, verify printed checks, errors found, notify HR of the discrepancy. The only reason you would be reaching out to HR is if there's any HR information that's wrong, but most of the time it'll be you fixing the warrants. And then the distribute checks, we've talked about that. The ACH file will go on the Monday. That's part of the timeline. We're not changing. But I'm not going to drain the off-cycle processing. So, but before I go through the end-to-end of the on-cycle processing, but this sort of brings us to the end of the overview section. And if I go to the some generic overview here. It is a lot of auditing. It's a lot of verification of different pieces of data that's going to impact your payroll. It's garnishments being made sure. That's another thing. You just handle most of the garnishments. Sorry, Jess. Sorry. You'll be holding. You're the main garnishment person, right? So additional pay, direct deposit, general deductions, garnishments, almost entirely controlled by payroll. Direct deposit information, tax information will come from self-service, but you'll be asked to do any updates to those tables. Should the employee have messed up? This is more than likely. So these are the major payroll inputs other than compensation and time and labor. This is what you're going to control in the holding tank. And then we talk about reconciliations, which is generic. You've been living and breathing payroll for years. You have to keep reconciling, keep looking at the error data, keep auditing, and keep cleaning up the information. Regulatory, this is correct, right? The Department of Accounts is responsible for the preparation of regulatory information.
Department of Accounts.
I think this might be, it's SPD basically, right? Any changes to, any policy changes that are going to impact data for payroll? I don't think we need that.
That's really the auditor's office. Yeah, that.
Okay, so this is all pretty generic information. I'm not going to drain this. You guys are way past this. But this gives you a nice little summary slide which talks about, all the things that come under maintain employee data, additional pay, deductions, garnishment, direct deposits, taxes, other than self-service. Outside of self-service, what's controlled by you? Patient loads, payroll adjustments, pay line adjustments. On the pay lines, you'll have to do one-time earnings adjustment. If something is wrong coming through the pre-ship loads I just talked to you about, you might go into the pay line and correct it. You might have to even correct the combination code, and we'll talk about that in a second. Processing the payroll will be controlled by the batch, but you might have to update items. You might have to look for errors coming from the payroll calculation, and you'll have to look for how we can fix the data. Post-payroll processing, tax and non-tax payments, integration with the general ledger and the accounts payable, and then any adjustment of balances. We don't do this during a pay period cycle, but we do this during the year end most of the time. We might have to do some during the year end. And then there are some generic slides here. This is a nice little picture. It tells you the complexity of what we are embarking here. You've got HR controlling the person, the position, and the job. I told you how important the position was. I told you how important the job data and personal data were. Benefits information coming from Christie Digital's team, medical, FSA, retirement, just examples. Time and labor, examples of transaction, payroll, examples of transaction coming from payroll tables, earnings deductions and taxes, and all of the processes that you guys have to run to maintain the system. Other than that, key payroll concepts. We talked about AOS being the creation of the payroll calendar and verifying the employee data, as also creating pieces of configuration that will run the payroll. I'm not going to drain the slide because I want to talk to you all about it. Vendor payments, garnishments, payroll admins, you're familiar with all of those. No need to drain that forever and a day. Roles and responsibilities, we kind of talked about that. Employees will be entering direct deposit and W-4 information, state and local tax data for tax distribution coming from employees might have to be updated by your group and on the core tables. And I'll tell you the difference between self-service and core. Maybe it's a good thing for you all to take a look at the demo first. Then the garnishment information, Bishop transactions, and then going through audit reports, payroll error message reports, the Pay 11, and verifying the results of processes. You might want to not just verify the processes, you might have to reprocess if the process scheduler, the batch scheduler bombed, over the night. So you might want to pick it up and say, if you get an urgent call from GMIS as an error, escalate, try to, help, use your wisdom to look at the errors, provide the functional information for GMIS to do the troubleshooting so that you can resolve the errors, and they might say, you run it again. We don't have to rerun the process. You're going to be very busy people, guys. Sorry. But I think it'll smooth out the, all the seamless Band-Aids and, Scotch tapes we've been using to create this architecture. That smooths out. As long as the input data is okay, the whole cycle will be okay.
Now we have new Band-Aids.
Does anyone want a 10-minute break now?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, it's 9:24. Erica and Latoya, are we good for a break now? I know it's a little...
There's food out there, you all. I brought instead
Yeah,
of
we could
donut
do
today.
an earlier break. That's fine.
Right, so 9:24, we'll come back at, what, 9:40?
Well, it's 9:25, so 9:35.
Okay, Erica makes the rules. I dare not
No.
contest.
All right, everybody. We'll see you back at 9:35.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, everybody, that was the quickest 10 minutes I've ever encountered in my life. So, want to see if everyone is back in the room, back in front of their laptops, so we can continue with the training.
I'm missing anybody?
Just Brent.
Okay. In the last lesson, we looked at payroll overview, payroll processes, modules, how the employee will be set up in PeopleSoft. Anybody interested in a 5-minute quiz?
Let's do it.
Let's do it then. Okay, I'm not going back to the overview, but what are the two methods by which employees will be hired into PeopleSoft and established in job data and personal data?
And manual entry.
Through Smart HR. Woo! How does the county information from personal data hit your, local tax data and the tax location code?
The county which you're a resident in, but it comes from your, success factors where you're in your biological, your
Right.
biograph.
Then your personal data is updated by the biodemo information from SuccessFactors. That county information sends a people code to update your tax location code on payroll, and also we tested this with Jaleel, who's the module lead for HR, and it also updates the employee tax data, local tax data table in payroll. We're going to go through all of that in a minute. What are the inputs coming from self-service payrolls?
Direct deposit, tax form.
Yep. And the W-2 consent. You can also have that on the. What is the big change we are making to make sure the direct deposit account? Prenoting, great. Are we going to be rolling out employee self-service immediately?
No.
Right. So we'll still continue to have the forms coming to payroll admins, and you'll be updating it on what I call the core. I call it self-service for whatever is controlled by the employee. When I say core tables, those are tables that you guys will be controlling, the payroll admins will be controlling. And then, what are the different streams of input, data input for payroll, for the payroll check?
Time and labor.
Time and labor, big one.
Benefit.
Benefit information, additional pay, for general deductions, and then you've got the compensation information from job data, and you've got the earnings eligibility coming from your pay group assignment. So then let's just start again. Let's say direct deposit information, tax information, time and labor, benefit deductions and general deductions. That's 5 already.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got additional pays, pre-shop loads, and the inbounds, which is close to pre-shop loads, but they're also inbounds.
Mm-hmm. Separated into earnings inputs,
And deductions
deductions
inputs.
input,
Yes.
and data inputs.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think a total of about 10 streams of data will be needed to get the pay calc working. And we talked about audits. The major processes are the pay sheet create, load time and labor, load pay sheet, load P-shop, and also run your calculations, run your confirm. And post-confirm processes such as running the information into there is a process that we run to distribute your payroll expenses into the against the chart fields, the accounting information. I spent a lot of time yesterday.
Level 3, 4, 5 in today's world.
Level 3, 4, 5 gone, bye-bye, replaced by speed types and chart field combos. That will be distributed by this process we call the PSPP fund, which will be controlled by the batch process on Friday night. If the batch process fails or does not do what it's supposed to be doing, Friday, you guys will step in, the notification will come to you, which is basically Paula and Shannon, and they will step in to make sure it's rerun, fixed and rerun. And that will come from many of the data errors. Data is going to be the bane of your life. So just get in front of the train and just get in front of the data issues by making sure it's all clean up front, by cleaning up to running all your audits. Your free distribution audit is a best friend, and you can testify to that. Any data coming from the free distribution audit, make sure that that is clean. The post-confirm processes are your PSPP fund, your actual distribution, your general ledger interface, the accounts payable interface, and the paychecks interface to the payments table in finance. So that is your payroll, basically. I'm going to hand it off to you. You own it, take charge.
Wait a minute, Sheba.
Bye-bye. Then we go on to the next section. Kofi, rather than, I'm going to walk them through, rather than go through the slides again. Gosh, we got lots of slides. I'm going to walk through all the employee pay data setup, and then I'll hand off to you to walk through how to set up the tax, update the taxes as a payroll administrator, update the direct deposit as a payroll administrator. Can you do that?
Yes, Shubha.
And then, so we talked a lot about the self-service inputs, and then we talked about how, the payroll administrators will be doing some of that, input correction in the short term. I will also go through some of the other things that we need, the major concepts. What is the company? What is the pay group? What does it do? What is the pay calendar? And what does it drive? And what are, things like, what are the earnings programs? What are the deduction that we've set up? So I might just go a little ahead of the schedule, so where you've got a lot of the, concepts being outlined here, I would actually like to go ahead and start doing some of the setup data that we've got in this, the first part of the slides. But, just to finish the input conversation, where you've got, we talked about the payroll administrator controlling additional pay, direct deposit, garnishment information. I'm going to go there and show you where to go, and Kofi can do the field by field. Let's do direct deposit, taxes, and additional pay and general deduction, and keep garnishments for the afternoon, because there's a lot of, fiddly bits in there. I'm going to go into the system. Most of what you will be updating, let me detour a little bit. Everything that the employee will be doing from a payroll perspective, and I talked a lot yesterday about employee self-service and the time tile. We are moving from classic, quote unquote, to fluid. A lot of the self-service pages and the manager self-service pages have moved to a style sheet, a look and a feel which is different and cleaner and more together, and more web-friendly, more device-friendly than the classic was. Most of the employee self-service inputs for payroll will not be from the time tile, but will be from the payroll tile. On the payroll tile, you can do a number of things, and I provided the input ones for the direct deposit, the tax withholding, the voluntary reductions you're not going to be using. Paycheck modeler, we've deferred it for the time being. We want to retest this. And then view paychecks. You can view your paychecks. You can consent for W-2. You can provide a W-2 consent and W-2C consent to receive electronic forms, and that's also going to be done through self-service.
Sheba, what environment are you displaying from?
UAT?
making sure all these tiles are gonna get cleaned up and removed
Yeah.
from here.
Well, yeah, but it's because I mean, I'm attached to you, but I've got, all panels access. So when you guys sign in with yourself, you shouldn't be seeing so many of this.
Okay, all that middle row is Canadian.
Yeah, the T4, T4A, T4 slips, RL1 and 2, all of these are Canadian. Voluntary. They get in. Voluntary deductions, we agreed some time ago that you won't be allowing employees to select their own voluntary deductions. We use that for things like charity, United Way and all of those charities. That's where I've rolled out the voluntary general deductions. Those state campaigns, you're not gonna be doing that anymore through that.
Oh, yeah, we have state campaign, but it's ran by SPD, so it's a file that comes.
Right, okay. And then, so the most important things that they will be using self-service for, direct deposit, tax withholding, W-2 consent, getting the W-2s online, but the most important thing is, after payroll runs, one of the big payroll, post-payroll processing is creating the self-service PDF, direct deposit advices, self-service PDF. Everything is in PDF, everything clean and nice. Self-service checks, PDF checks. All of that will be viewable by the employee the day after payroll confirms. So we made that, you guys can do that now, right? On Saturday, you can look at the online. It actually hits your accounts on the Monday, same as the timeline that you've got now. The direct deposit, the ACH file will go to PNC Bank on the Monday, but on Saturday they can already view it and look at it online.
Mm-hmm.
And that is coming from configuration, which I'll show you shortly. So these are all the self-service inputs. Kofi, how do we do this? You want to walk through direct deposit setup and how it impacts the core process? But give me 5 minutes. Let me show them where you navigate to go to the core payroll pages. So these are all the employee stuff. You will not have access to anybody's employee self-service pages but your own, right? That's clear. But on where I'm pointing here, this is your home, Payroll for North America. Everything here is, you guys will be the only people having security. I think GMIS might have some security to be updating, looking at things here. I don't know whether they have only read access, right?
Yeah, I think
For this. So a lot of the payroll inputs we've been talking about, which are controlled by the payroll administrator, come from Payroll for North America, Employee Pay Data USA, and then you see you've got tax information, you've got deductions, create additional pay. We're not using contract pay, so I'm going to ignore that. Request direct deposits, update payroll options. I will talk through that briefly, but you really don't need to do anything with the direct deposit. Under deductions, you've got general deductions, but you've also got garnishments. And so without further ado, Kofi, you want to carry it away and talk through the steps. First of all, let's get rid of additional pay and general deductions, and what kinds of general deductions we are still going to be maintaining in the new world. Over the last year, about 22 of these have been taken off, right? The credit unions and the union dues, that's gone.
much smaller list of general deductions.
Yeah. And we've got slides for that as well, but I'm just skipping the slides and going into the system because that's so much juicier for you. So let's go one by one. When we talked about if you're situated, your basic line as a new employee will be set up by the system. There is a setting on the HRMS installation table, which basically says when an employee is hired into the PeopleSoft system, create a default row for federal, state, and local. That it does. It won't automatically, for PeopleSoft, state of Indiana, your taxes are driven by your local tax, your assignment, your primary residence assignment on the first of the year, right? Whatever you were set up with in the tax tables at the first of the year is what you will be taxed at throughout the year. If a new employee joins in the middle of the year, there are certain conversations that payroll must have with the employee to see whether he was in the state of Indiana as of the first of the year. And then when you situate them in employee tax data, you make sure that the effective date is dated to the first of the year so that they can be taxed going forward. Otherwise, the pay calc system only for Indiana, it doesn't have, it doesn't do that for anybody else. Only for Indiana, it starts taking out the taxes from the first of the next year. Yes, and we've seen that happening. So I've given you a little bit of a build-up, Kofi. So you want to take the tax information, go through that, and then additional pay, go through that, setting up general deductions, go through that, and then direct deposit, go through that. Can you take that on?
Sure. Thank you, Shiva.
I'll stop sharing, and you can share. Thank you, buddy.
I'm sharing now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see you.
Yep.
Okay. So I've logged into the system, and I'm going to navigate to the tax information component. So I click on the navigator, payroll for North America, employee pay data USA, and tax information. Over here, as Shiva mentioned on several occasions, that once the personal data is set up for the county and the tax location code is set up on the job data, the system automatically inserts the default records for federal, local, and also the tax distribution. So we can first look at the update employee tax data. Have an employee here that we can use. So as you can see, this employee is in company SOI, who has this effective date. There are two federal form versions of the W-4 for 2019 and earlier, and then for 2020 and later. So for existing employees that have their W-4 set up prior to 2019, will have these options selected. But for new hires, the system will choose the W-4 2020 and later. The next section on the federal W forms is the federal withholding elements. For the default that the system sets up, the system inserts none for the special withholding, and the status will be single, and the withholdings will all be 0. So once the employee fills out the W-4 form and submits to payroll admin, that's where these fields can be updated per the W-4 form from the employee.
And your tax status, leave it as none, otherwise nothing gets deducted, withheld.
Right.
Yeah, don't make it maintain taxable gross, because if you do, the tax doesn't come out, but it maintains the taxable gross. So the first option right here is it maintains the taxable gross in the system, but doesn't take out the taxes. The second one says no taxable gross, it doesn't even maintain the taxable gross, and it doesn't withhold any taxes. None is what you are going to be selecting for most people who need to be withheld, right? Non-resident alien, well, Paula and I've talked about this many times. You've got people from overseas. I mean, the people that I set up with the most details of university visiting professors. For University of Connecticut, I set up a lot of the non-resident alien. You don't have to do that, right?
No.
You don't have anybody like that. I thought you said you had one.
We do have one person, but he maintains a Indiana residence.
Okay.
However, that did come up, we need to talk about it, because that is not their address in People's, so we're gonna have to talk about him. In GX, he maintains an Indiana residence, I'll say.
Okay. So we're not going to do non-resident alien, thank God. You don't have to verify the 1042 S's.
Yes.
Back to you, Kofi.
Okay. So the next field is the federal unemployment tax. Normally, this checkbox should be checked. And then we have the W-4 processing status. This is for employees that have exempted for federal taxes. On a yearly basis, they have to resubmit the form. So there's a process in PeopleSoft that sends a notification to employees to resubmit their W-4.
So Kofi, I just wanna make sure I heard you right on that. So if we get a brand new one right now, and we're gonna click the new W-4 received, right? After we go live, if we have a new one, we're gonna be clicking that if they're exempt. And then you're saying that next, I don't know, when it sends it, January maybe?
Yes, prior to, I think it's February 15th, there's some 2 programs that needs to be run. It's actually a process. So when you run that program, it sends a notification to the employee. At that point, the flag will flip to notification sent.
And then what happens if they don't send a new form in? Or even if they do, what happens either way?
If they do, then the flag. If they don't, then the process will flip them to none.
Okay, and then if they do, are we just clicking the new W-4 received again, or does it happen automatically?
We have to click the field. We have to select this field for that.
So we'd have to go in and select that. Are we adding a new row for that, or just selecting it on the current row? Sorry to put you on the spot. If you don't know, you can let me know later.
Yeah, we can.
I don't have that. Are we going to update in correction mode or?
I would not advise correction mode. First of all, I don't know how many of them are going to be having it. You'll do a row insert, but we don't want to rub out that one row, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the challenge with Indiana. We cannot rub out the one row until the next one. So I would say use the correction mode to update it on the. But some of this is the W-4 processing status is system maintained, right? Yeah. Give me a second. Go on to the next, and I'll just do a little bit of research.
All right. So the next section is the lock-in letter details. So if the when a letter is received from IRS or this, okay, we're on the federal, so the IRS, then the admin will click this checkbox And that opens up the other fields that needs to be filled out for the withholdings. So this sets up the limits for what's the range? This sets up the limit for the amounts that the employee can enter, can be deducted for the employee.
And then Kofi wants the release from the lock-in. We're just unchecking it.
Right. When you uncheck that, the fields gets hidden at that point. That way, the subsequent programs, the calcs will know that the employee doesn't have this field selected. So here, these fields, I don't think we're using this field with state of Indiana. And we're not using the tax treaty as well. I believe so, Paula, right?
Correct, yeah.
All right, so that's for the federal tax data. So the next tab is the state tax data that will be set up. So over here, the employee should have Indiana as the state. And then if the employee lives in the state, the resident checkbox needs to be checked. And if the employee works in the state, the UI jurisdiction needs to be checked as well. And then the exempt from SUT needs to be checked. For the SWT status, it's similar to the state. Most employees will have none selected. And the other selection are for exempt employees. Employees that are exempted from tax withholding for the state. This for the marital status. For employee, as mentioned, the default values that gets inserted when the employee is hired. This will be single, so it needs to be updated per the employee's status. The withholdings will be 0 as well for the default, and then the employee needs to send in the form to have this updated. Also in the state, we have the lock-in letter set up. So here you're going to click on the letter received, and then set the allowance value here.
And that's only if we've received a state lock-in, right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm going to move on to the next tab, which is the local tax data. The locality field will be set up per the tax location code on job data. So the admin can also update this field as needed for the locality that the employee lives in. The resident needs to be also checked. For employees that are not resident in Indiana, the flag will be unchecked, and then that will open up. So let me demonstrate that. So for employees that are not in state of Indiana, so this year, but they're not residents in state of Indiana. And then when you check the, so I did uncheck the flag previously. The county of principal employment flag gets displayed, and that needs to be checked.
But it comes in automatically checked, right, Kofi? If the Indiana resident box is not checked, it automatically checks county of principal employment on the local tab.
Yeah, it looks like that's what just happened. And so moving down to the local withholding, similar to the state, most employees will have none. And then the other selections can also be made for employees that are exempt from taxes. This is the marital status field, the tax status. And then for withholding allowance, this field needs to have the same value as the state withholding allowance. The page will actually not save. There's a warning that shows if these fields are different. Yeah.
That's important to make sure that we're doing that. The withholding allowance on state and local has to be the same.
Yeah. So once these tables, the federal, state, local, are all set up correctly for the employee, there's another tax table, the tax distribution table that needs to be set to show where the employee works at. So the update tax distribution, pick up the same employee here. So this table, every employee has to have this table set up. Otherwise, the calculate error on the employee. This table is set up based on the tax location code as well that is set up on the job data. So here you have to enter. So assuming the payroll admin needs to fill this form, the effective date here needs to be the same as the effective date here on the state state page or the local tax data page. So with that effective date, or you could even click on this button here, that will automatically populate from based on the setup that has been done here. And also the tax location code from job. Now this the employee's tax location has two localities, but normally normally we will use the 095, right? So this needs to be deleted, removed.
Yes.
And then the percent of distribution needs to be 100%. So you'll enter 100% here and then save the record. Any question on this setup?
Would we expect to see those bad counties coming in when we go live? Do we know?
There's, can we open a cert? We'll remove it.
I thought we already have.
You already have cert, right?
I mean, have you guys seen that in system where it's coming through twice?
The COIT, the CED, the SEDIT.
I haven't seen it on this distribution page ever, so.
Okay, so
But I've also
just-
never clicked that insert pre-fill.
Oh,
Okay.
I use that, I manually do it. But I've still not seen that on anybody else's. Sorry.
but we know that it's sitting on the table. All those bad counties
Yeah.
are sitting on the
Yep.
table, so
I think we might just go in and manually remove them.
Yeah.
I'll just inactivate them. I'll do that.
You'll do that? Okay.
Yeah. I'll do that in config. We won't worry about UAT because UAT is going away.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I do it in config, it's going over to the production.
Okay.
All right. So I'll open another tab to show the employee self-service, even though it's not going to be available for employees from the get-go. To see
You read my mind, Kofi.
where employees can update their W-4 forms. So we will change this to, I'm already hooked up to an employee, so I'll have access to the self-service functionality here. I'm going to click on the payroll tab. And then you'll click on the tax withholding. So this takes you to the W-4 forms that the employee is set up for the federal, state, and local. So here we can select the federal. Then you select the federal withholding allowance certificate here. Say okay. That opens up the PDF, that PDF form. So once the employee opens the this form, the W-4, they can go ahead and fill this form up. After the form is filled, there's a green button here that the employee will click on to submit the updates down here. So that once the employee clicks this, it will ask for authentication. I'm not sure whether it works now, but let's see.
Yeah.
So
Just enter it and see what happens.
right.
I think it's all tied to that MFA thing. What the heck is the Acro Road 32?
We had that in testing, yeah.
Yeah.
How did we fix that? I don't remember what they had to do to do it for it.
Many of you were getting it right during testing.
Yeah.
So it looks like it works. Actually, I didn't fill the form, so that's why the error is showing. But once the form is filled up,
Yeah.
it's gonna update the tables that we were looking at here.
One thing to remember for our group, sorry, Kofi, I think that we found in testing that you do have to put in a marital status.
Yes.
You can't just go in and complete the form without putting that, or it won't work.
Yeah, why don't you put that in so that we can just put in single or whatever.
Okay.
Married. And put in some numbers.
He didn't follow you, he clicked married.
Okay, so I'm going to click submit again. Okay, so this was successful. So let's see whether the page has been updated. Let me get out here.
So this is critical, right? He's putting information into self-service, but it's updating the core, what I call the core form. And that is something that we wanted to show as part of this.
Not sure
So if
what
somebody messes up, it's on you to go in and correct it. You're looking happy about that.
Oh, easy problems.
Um, let me see what employee I'm attached to. So I don't see my changes, so I'm going to see what employee that I'm attached to.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the
You
issue.
can remove the company and try without the company because you're not attached to Terra, are you, please?
Somebody
No,
else.
Clayton Graham. Okay.
So let's go back in here.
So you see what he's doing, right? And he's going to security and seeing which employee, because we are not employees. We have to attach ourselves to an employee to be able to see lots of the self-service stuff.
There you go. So I chose married and $4,000. You can see that's reflected on the federal state tax data table.
Right. So one thing to note, and PeopleSoft confirmed this, Oracle confirmed this, if you do anything on self-service, what the effective date that goes into the code table I told you about will be today's effective date. If I submit the form today, it'll take today's effective date. So it's showing 4/12, right? But if you want it to take effect by PayCalc to not ignore it, it has to go back to 1/1.
1/1 of the prior year. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you want it to be 1/1 of the current year, right?
For federal, yes,
Mm.
but if it's a county change,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't be, I mean, if somebody goes in and updates, put it for the next, WH4, yeah, the next year, sorry.
For the whole-
Next year, not the prior year, yeah.
But, are you saying, why does it have to go back?
Because if, let us say it's a new hire, okay? And we talked about multiple scenarios, new hire, resident in California, resident in Indiana, and not resident in Indiana, all of that. If it's a new hire, he has to be taxed from the next payroll onwards. The first payroll, he is employed by the state. You have to put it back to 1/1.
It expects to see 1/1.
It does expect. Payroll
Is that what
cap
you're
is
saying?
doing that, yeah.
So we have to change everybody.
No, everybody's converted like that.
Every
No,
new
not
hire.
new hires.
New hire.
Every new hire, if they're going to be delivering through the self-service, yes. But as long as they're not, see, if the new hire, it depends upon if they join in the middle of the year. That's what we talked about when we looked at the job aid for the setting up the tax data, right? We said that you're going to have conversation with the new hire, and that's what Oracle has also documented. Find out whether he or she was a resident of the state as at the 1st of January.
So is it cheaper though that we only have to change it on the ones that are the out-of-state issues, or we have to change it on every person?
If you
Because
don't,
If I go in and update mine in the middle of the year.
your updates will take effect the next year.
Right.
But
But
it-
it'll show today's date. 'cause
It will
I'm
show
on
today's date, yes.
So then, how does it know not to change my county until next January, if it's today's date?
Because the way the pay calc works, and I've got the Oracle documentation just shared with all of you, is that it takes the data and the setup of whatever you have as of the first of the year. Anything that you insert in the middle of the year, for example, you change your county of residence in September, but you were already converted or you already set up with 1/1 Marion County, you change to Adams County in the middle of the year. The Adams County taxes will take effect only the following year.
It sweeps and picks up anything after 1/1 and pulls that in for the next year.
Next year, yes.
Okay.
That's what it does.
So we don't have to do
Don't have.
we don't have to do all of them then, we're just doing the ones that
Had
we
changes.
have to change because of,
Yeah, I mean, in this scenario, this specific scenario, there are many scenarios we talked about. If you don't want them to be taxed in Marion County or Adams County from the very next payroll, you leave them alone.
yeah.
Because people's of pay calc will do the adjustment. When it crosses that first of year, when it crosses December 31st, the first payroll that comes after that will be taxed by the new
I
current.
understand change it, that's what I wanna know, new hires.
With new hires, and we've got the information on that in the job aid. With the new hires, you will need to predate it to the first of the year. Because otherwise it will just ignore that new hire and not tax them for county taxes until we cross that year. And I'll show you the Oracle, I think I sent you the Oracle.
Right. We'll have to read it.
I'll send you the Oracle documentation
I
again.
remember reading the stuff on that with you, but
Yep, I sent that to you.
I don't remember thinking we'd have to touch every new hire.
Yeah, let's walk through that after I said this.
Right, I'll send you the Oracle documentation, and I'll paste it to this chat so everybody can look at. I don't know why it's coming as, black, white on black. But take a look at that. I've posted something on this whole, exempt status, but go on, I'll post all of the job aid and the information from Oracle on how to handle, mid-year new hires on that. But go on, Kofi, I'll hand it back to you, sorry.
Which all new hires are gonna be mid-year, right? Nobody's gonna be hired on January
I know,
1.
right? But I'll just post that to you, I've got all of that.
All right. So
I
we
swear,
did
I've read this about 100 times.
There's certain things that keep haunting us.
So we ran through one example for federal. You could do the same thing for state. And there's no form for local, as the local should follow the state. All right. We can take a look at it, state as well quickly here. So this example of the state form here. Let me try and do an update as well. Let me do 3 exemptions here. So it needs 1.
Yeah, it said, nice try, Kofi.
So after this update,
Are we able now to do an additional count?
holding on 200 here.
There's a field for it.
Okay, so that a first paycheck needs to be run before that, so that's fine. Once we hit on the submit and then authenticate. If you have an error, you must select either city of residence.
Yeah, like the marital status field, right? You gotta select something.
Yeah. So I just found the documentation.
You have to put some at the top, Kofi.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't filled one of these, so let's choose.
So I wonder there, if they put the current county that they're in and they're just making a change, you wouldn't have to, well, I'd probably still flip the date and not tax them the next, we need to look at that.
So if I can interrupt for a second, the documentation I found, I've got it saved. It basically says, an employee is subject to Indiana local taxes based on the locality in which they reside on the first day of the year. This is Oracle documentation. If they move to a different locality during the year, they're still taxed in the original locality. If an employee was not an Indiana resident on the first day of the year, they're not subject to local tax for that year. Not all Indiana localities have taxes. When an Indiana employer hires an employee mid-year, they must find out where the employee lived on the first day of the year. If it was in Indiana, the employer must set up the date and local tax, state of the state and local tax data records with an effective date as of January 1, even though the effective date of hire is a later date. If the system sees an Indiana local tax record with an effective date greater than the first day of the current year, it will ignore it. An employee can have two records for the year if their status changes, example, a transfer. There must be one that is valid as January 1.
So, but if an employee is doing that through employee self-serve, there's no way for them to select a 1/1 date.
No.
Like, it's coming in as the current date.
That's where you come in.
That's every single new hire. That's
We'll circle
bad
back to the process.
configuration.
We'll circle back to this outside of this.
Yeah.
Well, we
Okay.
can't force it.
And I even talked to her, Dave and I even talked to this lady who gave us this information, Tony Reyes from Oracle. She's been doing payroll for a long time.
It's like you would have to identify at the point that it comes in if,
Well, we can force new hires.
yeah.
You run the query every day to see who's updated the tax forms through employer self-service, and then update just those guys. Because, they're going to, I asked questions, I opened a ticket for the Oracle. Brent.
I'm stretching.
You're stretching, is that all you're doing? You're stretching? I thought you were having a pain in the neck.
He is.
I opened a ticket with Oracle maybe 100 years ago for this Indiana. So they responded to my questions, so they've also responded to this. I post all of this on the chat. Kofi, I'm sorry again. Please go ahead.
Just another query. No big deal.
Sure. So we just made updates on the W4 form for the state, and on the back end or on the core page for state tax, you can see the updates that I made on the PDF form that are reflected. All right. Let's look at. So we mentioned for the locality, the withholding allowances needs to be 2. I just did it on the state tax, but you can see that it's being reflected. The same value is being reflected here on the local tax data page. Any questions? That's it for the employee tax data.
I don't think so, Kofi.
Okay.
Okay. So while we are on a roll, we can go through the AOS. We're just going to finish all the input, the data input piece, so that I can go into what I like best, which is the processing and the validation.
Okay.
So we can do some of that after lunch, after the lunch break. I'm asking Kofi to go through the direct deposit, the AOS, the general deduction. That's all the stuff that you guys control, right? Have access to and control. And then we'll take a break and come back, and Erica will keep us honest about what time exactly we can come back to. And we can come back and talk through my checklist, my masterpiece, as well as the screenshots, the screens.
There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the checklist.
Right.
Living and breathing it.
That's your living and breathing document. And you can take charge, guys. I mean, I'm doing all the updates, but you can put in things that you want to run, make it your own. Okay, Kofi, so the consensus is, let's finish this whole maintain time reporter data in section 2. Move on, garnishment, okay, we can get through garnishment either before the lunch or after the lunch, depending upon how fast we can get through. But try to get through additional pay and direct deposit and general deduction. And I will chime in, based upon the fact that the whole direct deposit, building was my design. I'll go through and update all of that I'll chime in wherever necessary. But go to the employee direct deposit page, show them how that is done, and we can go do a little back and forth about the custom pieces that we've introduced because of the whole pay card thing, right? So we'll talk about that as well, but take us to the employee general deduction. So the ESS, employee self-service, the direct deposit.
All right. So before I navigate there, let me open the call. That way we know how the setup is on an employee. There. To go back and pick my employee this time, I'm going to pick this. So the request direct deposit is the core page that the payroll admin is responsible for maintenance. The payroll admin can enter or update changes using this page. And then there is a self-service view that the employee will use to maintain his or her direct deposit. So that page is also under the payroll tab here. You have direct deposit tab. So this employee already has one account set up. It's a checking account that has been set up. And here is the routing number for the bank and then the account number for the employee. So over here, so there's one account here and then there's one account in the back end. As you can see, it's the same account. So I'm going to go ahead and add in an extra account, or probably two more here. I'll call this the savings account one. The payment method is a default field, so it defaults to direct deposit. And then the next section is the bank section, where an employee will choose the routing number and enter their account number. So I have a routing number here for the bank. Then as Shiva mentioned, the account number can be any string. So 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a free form, but employee can enter any digits in here.
If you hit on that eye, that blue eye, that will tell you exactly what the validation is for the routing number.
All right.
So they're basically saying that get your correct routing number from your check.
So as the account number.
Which is outdated since most young people don't even have checks anymore. I don't understand that concept, but yeah.
So I'm going to re-enter the account number and then tab out. Then, as mentioned, this is a savings account, so the account type should be savings. And then the deposit type can choose an amount, 1%, or remaining balance if there are multiple accounts.
There should only be one account, though, just for everybody to make sure we understand, that says remaining balance, not multiples.
Right.
Yeah, so depending on the deposit type, the field here changes. So when I choose amount, you have the amount field to enter the amount. When it's percent, then you have the percent field. And then when it's remaining, that field goes away, because you put in the remaining of your payment into that account. All right, let me do 350 here for savings. And then I'm going to save this here. So this
And Kobe,
insert,
if we click on the routing number or the account number, it would display, right?
I'll have to come back. I'll enter another transaction and then we can click on it and see what happens. Give me a second. So the system is going through to insert that record to the core area. So I'm going to get out of that and come back in after the record is saved.
Maybe if it takes this long, it'll discourage people from making too many changes.
Yeah, but UAT has been slow the last 2 days. It's, it's not normally like this.
So the record has saved, and then we have two entries here. So there's ordering here, and this is a key field on the call table, actually. So I'm going to go to the call area and go back in. And as you can see, there's today's date, a new role has been inserted. In this, the checking was the existing one, so page through here. So I entered the savings account. I chose deposit type, an amount of 350. And then the priority is being inserted by the process and the system. When the employee submits direct deposit. But for admin, you have access to set up the priority. One thing you should note as well is the pre-notification required flag is checked. That means that these accounts setup will go through the pre-note process. As part of the pre-notification, there are two fields, the pre-note date and then pre-note status. For new accounts, the date is blank and then the status is not submitted. So once payroll confirms and then the create direct deposit file is processed, there's a field on that run control page. Let me go there that way.
Yeah.
Everyone can
And Shannon
follow.
has been running that.
And then Kofi, can you talk about the different statuses after it comes back?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
We go to payroll, so create direct deposits, and then create direct deposit file.
And we've got a very detailed job aid for the direct deposits. We went through that with tooth comb. We also have federal and state and local separate job aids for that. I'll ask Latoya to put the links. I can put the link here.
I don't know, I don't remember if within the direct deposit job aid though, if it really talked too much about prenoting.
The pre-noting? I thought there was mention of that. Barry put that in. I've got it open actually.
Okay. All right, so
I'll
on
do
this.
that for you.
Okay, this is the process to create a direct deposit file and transmit to the bank. So you will run with a pay run ID. So this pay run ID will be the current run ID being used to process the payroll through calc and confirming the check. So when you scroll down here, there's a processing options that says pre-note date. normally is the date that you are sending or processing this file to send to the bank. So once you enter a date here and then you run the process goes back and updates these two fields here, the prenote date. So this date will be the same date that was entered over here. And then move from not submitted to complete or to submitted. So the startup first moves from not submitted to submitted. And then once a date is entered on here, the system, there's a pre-notification period, which is set to 10 days. So the system looks at that value, that number, the pre-note wait time, compares to this date. And then when that 10 days is reached, the system updates the pre-note status to complete.
So can we stop right there for a second?
Sure.
So just, ours won't be 10 days, it'll be something less than that.
Yeah.
Shuba mentioned 5, I don't know for sure that we're set on 5, but it'll be a date smaller than 10. And then what really happens is, as Kofi said, it flips the status, and it just knows the next pay period, it's gonna go as a regular ACH. So until that's in completed status, their money is still not going to that bank account. It's just on the file in pre-note status. But then also, Christy or Lori is gonna be monitoring the account, just like you do today for notifications. And if there's a problem with one of those pre-notes, it's gonna come back on that same report, which means we would have to go in and make an adjustment to that or whatever, because it will automatically, is that right, Kofi? Will it automatically go to complete at the 5 days, even if we've received an error?
I think I saw documentation which says it does that when the next ACH file runs, right?
Right.
Regardless if we've received an
Yeah.
error or not, right?
I think, Dave pulled out some documentation from, Oracle. I'll send that to you as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a disconnect, between the bank and the Pinnacle site where that information comes back in from.
Okay.
So I think that it will automatically go to complete. And if we're getting an error, we have to go in and correct that. Or it will go to the bad account and reject and come back, right?
We send an ACH files maybe daily.
And yes,
Yeah.
it is our intention to send an ACH file every day.
Right.
Because we expect to have off cycles every day, and they will go direct deposit. So, yeah.
So what's the 5 days?
That's
So
the pre-note window.
it's a wait period from the time that they
Yeah.
enter it to the time that the banking system says we've had time to pre-note it with the individual, because we're sending it to PNC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then PNC is sending that information out to the individual's bank, and they're the ones doing the actual pre-note. So it's the amount of time it takes to do this and get it back.
Oh, okay.
And if they just pick, I think the standard we read was 6 days.
Yeah.
It was on there, but in talking with Pinnacle, we do have, or PNC, we have a little wiggle room with that wait period.
So Shiva, on that, ACH file is gonna be on batch. What date is going to be, we're not running that manually, right? We're not creating that, that's on the batch.
That's on the batch.
Right, so what date is in that pre-note field? The date is created?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to be, right? Because the system, the scheduler won't know what date to
Yeah,
put
I
in.
just didn't know what we decided, because we've
Yeah.
been doing it different. Yeah.
I know.
Right?
The very first, the on-cycle one will take the pay run date,
Okay.
the pay run ID and the pay dates relating to that. But then, when you start doing it every day for the off-cycle, it has to take that date.
Which that's a question, is it on the batch to run every night right now because of the time that,
I can check with Feroza, but, I think we are putting it on the Monday file, on the Monday schedule for the on-cycle.
Yeah.
The off-cycles, I think it's gonna be decided. Hey, Brandy, can you keep me honest here?
We're running ACH on Friday, right? And it'll just go and wait for the Monday morning send to the bank.
Yeah,
So
For
we're
the
still
regular.
gonna,
that's the on cycle, but we did have a conversation about the off cycles. What did we decide?
Because there'll be an ACH file every day.
There could be, may not be.
There will be.
you're gonna have to kick it off because if we don't have anything for that day for that, we won't be able to, if we put it on batch, it'll fail if there's nothing there, right? So
What happens if it fails, though? I mean, it just fails,
It just
right?
fails. It doesn't go.
somebody's gotta go delete an instance though. I mean, I don't know. I think that, it probably just needs to be kicked off whenever you guys have an ACH.
Steps of the process.
Right.
Could be to kick it off. We can also control the date that we want that to hit, that's outside of this process.
Is it easier to have it on batch and then on a day that we're not going to have it, we submit something to say we're not gonna have one? Because it'll be
I don't know,
rare
we can
that.
take it offline and talk about it, cause I don't know. I haven't looked at the batch schedule since you guys made the determination to run it, with every off cycle. I don't know if we added that like that.
Because right now we only submit our ACH files in the morning.
Right.
So, we're gonna look into submitting them at other times. We can submit it earlier.
Yeah.
If you finish manual warrants, let's just say at noon, you can still submit it the same day. Right now, our process waits till the next day when it picks them up. So that would help them get out the door quicker. We also add 2 days onto it. And so we could change that to 1 day, but some of those things might happen after go live.
Right.
And it would shorten down the time to make the off-cycle ACHs more attractive than it waiting 3 days maybe. You can get a check faster, in some cases. So we can restrict those things down, but we need to have that 2 days on, the payroll process.
But for the on cycles, that makes sense. For the off cycles, when you could have 2 checks, you could have 200 checks. Why don't you guys control that then through the manual? Just kick it off manually, the DDP 001. You've been running it quite often, right?
But we're just
So this
saying
is the off
that would
Monday.
be every single day, we would be kicking it off.
I would agree that you need to kick it off manually because you don't know when you're gonna be done with off cycles for the day, right? I mean, you can have cutoffs, but it may take you, I mean,
So, all right, let's put.
Okay,
Let's put this on the burner for a while. There was one conversation we had way back when we said we would gather all the off cycles and send that on the Friday, but we want the payment to be more immediate, so we're sending them every day.
I just wanna make sure
Okay.
also on that pre-note date that, we know
What date will go in the
future.
file?
Because we've been using pay date on
Okay.
So what, did we determine what date would be in the file?
the date you're due.
The date,
Yeah,
the date we create the file.
right.
Okay.
That's for the off cycles. The on cycles, we're putting in the
Check date.
check, yeah. All right, let's go on, and let's finish this, and, we've got a few more of the payroll inputs. I'm just going to gather all the information on the local taxes to post on the chat.
All right, so during the wait period for pre-notification, the employee will be receiving checks instead of direct deposit. And then think Shuba about the pay card. If the first payroll runs and creates the check and then there's another check which the employee hasn't gone through the pre-notification, at that point, there's an outbound interface that goes out to congruent.
Yep. So let me talk to that.
Sure.
We do have a fairly detailed job aid on this, and I'm just, Latoya, remind me of where I have to go to get to the approved designs, the approved job aids. I think I know where it is. We'll get the link to you all here. Erica, I'm going to change network SharePoint. approve training material. Yeah, I'm going to approve training material and payroll, and you've got the job aids there, right? Do you mind if I paste it to the chat?
The link to the approved job aids?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but I do
They're
know
not
that
all.
there are a few that are outstanding,
Yeah.
that we're still updating. So those I know are going to be included in the, I believe, the UAT folder. So I know for a fact that there are still some that are outstanding. So if you share that, just know that there are a couple of job aids. I don't know offhand which ones, but I do know that we have a couple that need to be updated.
Okay. The navigation I'm going to is change network SharePoint, approve training material, and payroll. And those I think we did go through and approve them some months ago,
Yep.
especially the one from direct deposit. I'll post that
Yeah,
here.
direct deposit should be good.
Yeah, I'm just pasting it to chat. I know we spent some time reviewing that, but okay.
Mhm.
All
Yeah,
right,
direct
so
deposit should
okay, I've got some extra information here. Why is that? Right, let's talk about the direct deposit process. So there is a design document we created when we heard all the requirements from state of Indiana about the pay card. we knew that this wouldn't be an interface. It would be an update to the actual self-service information, and it would also be an update on the core direct deposit pages. So the scenarios we walked through and what we programmed for are basically if an employee is hired, he's been provisioned with self-service information to update his direct deposit information, hasn't done so, scenario one. So as we're doing right now, the first payroll will be paid by check. Yes? Net pay goes to a check. Now, the pre-note passes, he has not updated anything, it's still on the, at the end of the payroll period, and Shannon has been testing this, you've been looking at the results of the testing, the outbound conduit interface. When you run the outbound conduit interface on the Friday after, which is your check date, which is your payroll processing pay confirm date, after that when you run your conduit interface, it looks at all the people and you confirm, you've been checking chime in. The outbound file has a list of all the employees paid by check. By check, I mean warrant, in this payroll period. And all of those people, whether they're new hires or people who just deleted their accounts and never entered their accounts, and they're, rehires or whatever, anybody who's been paid by check, that list of employees will go to conduit on the Friday night. Brandy, keep me honest here, it actually goes on Friday night, right? Or the following Monday?
No, it's Friday. Marissa just validated that.
Yeah, she's sending it on the Friday.
Yes, it's
Okay.
going on a Friday and the return is coming back the next day, not on Monday, coming on Saturday.
So it's coming back on Saturday. That's fantastic. So the very next business day, or non-business day, the very next calendar day, Conduit will send you a return interface, which basically has the pay card information for all the people who in this payroll period will pay by check. What that pay interface does is there are two tables at the back of your direct deposit page, and that's called direct deposit and direct deposit distribution page. Both those, the deposit, the account type field has been updated with a custom value. Can you go there? Can you go to the account type field and show the pay card information? You see, that translate value pay card is not, is basically not a delivered field. We've created that for the state of Indiana. When that information comes in from Conduit, it's going to flip the account type to pay card, and it will set up the pay card information, the account code, and the pay card number on this particular page and table. Employee will be able to see that he's being paid by pay card for the next payroll. but he cannot update it on self-service. When let us say the scenario where if the employee does nothing, scenario 2, scenario 2A, then the next few payrolls will also be paid by pay card. If he goes in and enters the direct deposit information, then depending upon how many accounts he sets up and what priority they are, and whether he's got the balance of net pay as one of them, your net pay will be divided into those, distributed amongst those priorities. $100 here, that's my mortgage. $1,000 here, that's my mortgage account, and then $40 here, which is my school account or college account, and the balance of net pay will go to my default account. So depending upon the instruction you give an employee at such time, even after they get ESS self-service access, the moral of the story is they get 4 accounts, up to 4 accounts, and one of them has to be the balance of net pay.
From the self-serve standpoint, though, it shows
Remaining balance, yeah. In self-service, it shows remaining balance, which is basically, but in the core pages, what he's showing you is balance of net pay.
Mm-hmm.
Go to
Why
the-
doesn't Oracle just stay consistent and use the same term in both places?
They basically, on self-service, they use different nomenclature.
Okay.
So now suppose the employee does put in a number and it fails the pre-note process because of messing up with the account number, it'll stay with the pay card information.
Well, wait, because the pre-note fail doesn't come back in the file and do anything. It's coming back through our notification on
Right.
Pinnacle's site. So I think it would flip it to the bad account, and it would go. We would have to go in and correct that account. We wouldn't want to, we want to let the pre-note do what it's going to do and send it. We just need to make the correction.
Yeah.
The account number, a lot of times it's just the type, right? They've checking and it should be saving.
It's like what he did just now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it went through. So that's something you'll have to watch out for because people will mess up. Okay, and then what's the last one I wanted to say? Okay, when an employee makes,
I was gonna say, can we talk about the scenario where, we sent the pay card, right, from Friday night's payroll run, we send the card and they're sending us a return. But before the person can even be paid on the pay card again, the next payroll, they make an employee self-serve.
Yes.
So what happens in that scenario? How does it know not to apply what conduit sent back to us?
So it's a timing issue. Depending upon what goes first, if the pay card is already there and he's already changed it, then depending upon how early before the payroll processing he changes it, as long as it's done before pay confirms.
Well,
Pay
it's
confirm,
got
huh?
a pre-note as well, so we would.
Yeah,
It's not gone to the pre-note.
It won't flip until.
The pre-note process
Yeah, the
finishes.
pre-note, then it's gonna shut it off and
Yeah.
allow that.
So they could get paid on the pay card
Another payroll,
Right.
another
Okay.
payroll, yeah.
Or that would be the.
or
first time.
once,
Yeah.
right?
And we haven't decided on the payroll. I can show the place where we set it up, so the source bank information, it's still showing 10 days. So, I'm waiting for the state decision on how we want to flip it. You said that, if you're going to be sending the ACH file every day, we could move it to 5 days or a 3-day window to make it. During testing, I was just basically doing it 1 day because I wanted to get immediate results. But I think 1 day is not realistic because it won't really go to the, the reason we say 10 days is because if you made a change at the beginning of the pay period, it's your 8 days of processing plus the weekend and the direct deposit file goes on the Monday. So the pay period, the payroll processing starts on Monday, then it's 8 days at least before it hits the bank.
Yeah, so that's probably
If that makes
the
sense.
communication that we would need for, the onboarding packet, so that employees understand we're pre-noting now, and if they don't do their direct deposit before the first time they get paid, it's likely they will get paid on the pay card.
I think though, it already states that it's not guaranteed to start for like 2 days. There's something already there.
There's something in there
So,
about that.
Yeah,
Get
I
a
can't
check,
remember
and then
about,
they get a
yeah.
card in the mail, and then depending on the timing.
They
We
probably
have to
gonna
review
pay
it, I
on
believe
the
it.
yeah.
I think we already have that.
But they would have to update, if it gets on the card, they can't use self-service to update.
They can use
Go, right?
self-service to go in and set up a direct deposit. They just can't choose pay card, right? They don't have.
Oh, I see. I thought once it went to pay card, they couldn't change it
They can't.
self-service.
She meant they
You can't
change
do
it
any
by-
updates to that, it's grayed out.
To a pay card. To a pay card.
To a pay card.
Yeah, you
So
can't
if they
update
just add a direct deposit, it'll cancel out the pay card?
After the pre-note.
It will, depending on.
Hide
the-
it.
that's
After the
what we're
pre-note,
saying.
it will.
It's
Okay.
the timing of the pre-note.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gonna
so-
have a query?
Yes, we have a query.
Although we've got ESS in place when we go live, right, when we have paper, we want to instruct the agencies to send those over more frequently. Right now, they send over a packet at the end of the pay period.
Well, I think you're getting them all the time, aren't you?
Direct deposits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Direct deposit
Okay.
line.
Yeah,
Constantly.
But we also need to decide if, since we're still keeping them, are we pre-noting them?
Okay, no, that's a good
We
question.
haven't
Yep.
made that decision yet.
So the-
What about the ones that come through the mail?
Okay.
Like when we transition to go live, and
What do you mean?
If people
they
have been
get
holding them.
mailed in all the time. What if it happens further down the line, yeah.
I'm not following the question. What do you mean?
So an agency's mailing
Same
it.
process, like if an employee submits it, like say a year later, a year forward.
And
then
you're
it's
on,
mail.
you're on ESS, but you still get a form in the
Can
mail.
we still enter it ourselves? Or do we have to go back to the employee to do it?
I
No,
think
you
we-
want the employee to do it.
If you're saying if the employee does something on ESS,
No.
No.
They mail you a direct deposit.
ESS is available, but you still get a paper form in the mail. You know, she's asking, are we still gonna enter in paper form if there's, that form's out there,
well,
right?
we would do a verification.
Yeah.
So we'd have to do a verification, because you have to understand, is there already something in ESS? Because if we're getting a form, maybe it's not even there to begin with, right? They don't even have an account. But if it's a change, first of all, it's our job to educate the payroll departments, to educate their employees. You don't do both. You're either gonna do it in employee self-serve, or you're gonna send a form because you can't access employee self-serve. So if we find that we get both, then we have to reach out and evaluate what should occur, and not assume, don't ever assume, right? We wanna be sure.
But we wanna avoid forms
We
at all
do.
costs, right?
We do.
We don't wanna even
Eventually.
accept them.
Well, yeah, some people won't be able to access employee self-serve, but their agency payrolls, I don't even know if they can they, Shuba? Agency payroll, how would they, if they can't enter a direct deposit either, they
No.
have to, just
So,
have to
so
come
we can
to us.
identify those groups of employees, plus, you know, that if you're saying that it's, I'm just gonna make some of board members and this other
I
group,
was gonna say, we're
and
gonna
they
have
come across
inmates,
you and those.
inmates that
What-
we have to.
What
Yeah.
inmates go to a.
That comes from me
Yes.
anyway. Yeah, but,
There will be a form that, for various reasons, but we shouldn't have both, right? If we have both, it's an education problem to tell that person, don't be sending paper.
When we go to the new, when we go to the new system and, you know, until employee self-service is up and we are entering direct deposit, are we still going to limit them to just the two that's on the current form, or are we going to the new form?
We're gonna go to the new form.
Can we, you just, for as much as we get in and have to enter 4 and 5, or four, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, I would rather stay with the current form and limit them to just 2 until we go to employee self-service.
Yeah, except it's already been communicated out to the world in multiple
So,
communications
in
that
that
they allow
case, if
for.
someone has 3 accounts, only through 2 bank documents, does the third one go to the second spot? Like, how does that work?
Someone has what?
Someone sends in a form, 3 direct deposits, they want to set up. Number 2 doesn't have a bank document, number 3 does. Does that slide in number 2's spot?
Yeah, they can only set up what we have
Have
documentation.
to wait for number 3 to come in later on?
And then you'd have to reorder if they.
They have to specify the priority,
Yeah.
they have to specify the priority.
one of the direct deposits is the priority 0, or
You have to remove it.
remove it.
Well,
But the direct deposit, sorry, the balance of net pay will always be 999. That's what the system does. When you enter one account as the balance of net pay, that is your catchment account. It will catch everything else. That is not a percentage or an amount of flat amount. Everything else will go to that balance of net pay.
Kofi, can you show us how we would stop a direct deposit if we're on the system, not through employee self-serve, if we were doing it?
because we inactivate.
Yeah, you can show that, Kofi, sorry.
Because that's the whole,
We don't remove them?
that's the whole thing.
Not on our
Is there a
side.
limit on how many they can have? Like,
You are adding rows. You're
yeah.
adding a whole new row with a new effective date. You're inactivating the previous.
Yeah, he can show
That's
that.
Yeah, because we have the history. It's not adding like direct deposits.
Like the one you just set up, show us how you would
Yep.
just inactivate that one.
Right. So let us say we've made this update as of today, and then you know that next week you're going to be changing all of that. So go in and put next week's date, maybe 4/18, and inactivate this person's direct
Right.
deposit information. The understanding is that, sorry?
Go ahead, you finish and then demonstrate it.
But we're not gonna have that.
We won't. Not in.
Are you speaking, Shuba?
Yeah, I was asking you to go in and inactivate it as of a future date.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to go in correction history mode, correction mode. Then I'm going to add in a new role here, and that copies over the previous setting. And then here you can update the effective date to future dated role here, and then since
They want
I'm
yeah, they
inactivating
want
just the one I added, so I'm going to go. I have to remove this. That way, the previous one is still valid. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to remove this row here. So that leaves the role that we entered today, and that's what we're going to inactivate. And then we hit on. Okay. So this employee is attached to my profile, security profile, so I'm not able to make the update. But this is how you're going to stop a direct deposit setup.
And now you have 3 rows there, so can, the third one being this inactive row, right?
Right. So the balance of net pay, which was the check-in, will still be active. And then within that was the savings account that we added, but that account is being future dated for the inactivation.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Not that everybody else doesn't need to understand, but you really need to understand.
When the conduit file comes back, if somebody has already started, a direct deposit from the time they hired, but their first pay didn't come. With conduit file coming in, if there's an active direct deposit, it will not start the pay card. It recognizes that. We don't have to query for that, and we don't have to go shut it off.
Is it gonna populate the information as a row?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't do anything.
So,
No, that's one of the things that we designed,
There's a
maybe,
report, and we'll keep that.
right.
There's a
I
report of
can't
who
hear you
is
guys.
I was just stating that when the conduit file comes in, if there's employees that have direct deposit already set up in that period of time, the pay card will not activate on them.
And that we don't have to go and do anything to remove it, because in today's world, we do.
So,
Well, one of the first checks it does, that in interface that comes in from Conduent, and we designed this whole package way back when, if you remember, it looks for an entry on the two tables that I mentioned. If there is no entry, it inserts it. If there is an entry, it doesn't insert it. And you tested this, right? And she's got the proof for that. Okay, anything else on direct deposits, or do we move on?
Do you have a question?
we tested that where we had a direct deposit set up and then we brought back the Conduent file and it did not update that direct deposit information.
Yep,
Okay, so that logic works.
yes, it produces that, like not an error file, but it gives you the people it did not load because of that reason.
There's an error log, when you look in the process monitor, there's an error log which shows you who did not load.
Okay. Cynthia has a question.
Do we always use correct history when we're inactivating or removing a direct deposit?
I think, Kofi, can you try this without, the effective date of today, is where you added this information, right?
Right.
So that effective date, can be just inactivated as of the effective date. You only add one row on a particular effective date. You're not going to add multiple rows.
I'm back in here. I'm still in correction mode, so let me back in, check.
I mean, if somebody made a mistake, let the mistake show there.
So we're going to add another row today. Okay, so I'm adding another row here and then updating the effective date. Right? And we're doing inactivation. It's still not going to allow me because I have to try a different employee. Let me try a different employee, that way we can save the page. I'm inactivating all the accounts for the employee, and then hitting on submit. Is that my? So you use the same employee ID here.
Yeah, find some other employee.
I have another one here.
You can use me, Kofi, if you want to.
Let's try this if it doesn't work. Oh, okay, so this as of January 9th, I'm going to update that to today and then inactivate the record.
Yep. Yeah.
And
The
this
only
is-
reason you were having all those other issues was the security.
Yeah.
But you can always insert, let's say somebody did a fat finger, try not to update it on the same day. Inactivate them on the day when the mistake is discovered.
All right. One other thing, Paula, I think you were asking on the self-service page about the link.
Yeah.
When you click on it, it gives you the actual
Right. And the reason personal accounts are hidden are because there's a configuration that we've got the direct deposit configuration for that. I'll walk you through that very briefly. So we've done additional pay, correct? No, we've just done tax data and direct deposit data. You want to go quickly through additional pay and general deductions, so that we can wrap up the employee discussion. How
Okay.
much depth do you want us to go in for the GAN spec?
Not a lot, I think just show the
The different
pages
fields?
and,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I want to get us into the processing and the validations.
So let me add one more point. So for existing employees, if the bank ID and account number changes, then you have to go through pre-notification again.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'll use the same employee here. Then we're going to review the additional pay setup.
So this is one of the inputs we talked about, where earnings can be set up for feeding a pay line. When you set up an additional pay and you go through the create pay sheet process, that will be done by the batch scheduler. It will pull the additional pay from this setup into that. It's a very nice form to have. Right now, we're using it only for the county wage supplement and the housing allowance. Only thing is, many of your payments are not consistent and across every pay period. There are too many inconsistencies. That's why we're doing so many pitch uploads. But I like the fact of moving them to an additional pay at some point. Especially per diem is an obsession with me.
Yeah, they don't happen on every pay though.
Okay.
All right. So this employee does not have any setup here, so we can go through that quickly. As Tuba mentioned, there are two additional pays or earnings that are paid through the setup for employees on the additional pay page. So one is the housing allowance, as mentioned, and then you could update the effective date. Normally is you will use the pay begin date for the pay period. Right? So an example will be March 20th. Yeah. Then the additional sequence number should be set to 1, unless I don't think that will happen, but unless you have 2 records with the same earning code. With that, you have to increment the sequence number. So the earnings is the amount that you want to pay the employee. So let's say to 35 here, and then the goal amount. The goal amount is the total payments that, for example, within a year, if you want to pay the employee up to, let's say, 7,000, then you will put the goal amount here. And then once our payroll runs and confirms, the goal balance is updated with the payments on the check. So this will be a summation of all the payments that have gone to the employee. Now, when this goal balance gets to 7,000, that's at that point the payment stops. Another way to stop it is also to enter an earning date. And then that also stop the payments. Applies to pay periods. Normally these 3 checkboxes needs to be checked for the setup. And then the job information is the default from job data for position and business unit department. and the standard hours.
Right. And the most important flag is the okay to pay flag, because we are not defaulting okay to pay for anybody other than a salaried employee. From the job data, from the create pay sheets process, only allows the employee to go with the okay to pay for.
Hold on. Are we saying that okay to pay will not be checked on a county supplement? We have to go in and actually check it?
Yes.
There's like,
You mean every time they get
every
paid?
time? Every time they get paid, we have to do that?
No. I mean, you have to set it up. When you set it up, you set it up once.
Okay.
Oh, my
I was
Lord.
like,
No.
hold on there.
No, I see.
Maybe it's getting very close to lunch, but I'm just saying, when you set it up the okay to pay, so
Okay,
that gets
gotcha.
go through all the time. But this is, it's, the time and labor, you've got to set up the flag, every time you load it. But for this additional pay, set it up once. General deduction, set it up once. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a job data override. So if you want to override these default values here, you can enter the fields here to override. Shuba, we're not using this edit chart fields, right? On this page.
Okay, the question is, we're not putting in any combination code here, it's going to default for any additional payments. So I will get you into the combination code discussion, after we come back from lunch, so that you've got some food in your belly. But, we need to, for the additional payments, it'll go to the default department budget table defaults. And I will explain all of that to you when we get to the discussion on post confirm.
All right. The last section is the tax information. We'll maintain the defaults here as well. Then at this point, you can save. So the employee has been set up for additional pay. So this pulls into the pay sheet when a pay sheet is created, and eventually gets on the paycheck.
Have we talked about loading that with a file for those county supplements?
Right, let's do it, keep it manually for the time being, and then revisit it as see if we can do something with the programming after we go live. But for the time, it's a manual, as delivered, it's
Add that
manual.
on to the deferred items.
Yeah, as delivered, it's manual. Same as
There's like 600 or 700 that'll come.
every year, right?
In January, right?
Once a year.
Into December for the first check in January.
Yeah, I had a couple of ideas. We'll revisit them after. Let's go live. Let's go live first. It's been a long journey getting here.
All right. So if there's no further questions, we move on to the next one is general deductions. For general deduction, you click on deductions and create general deductions. Going to use the same employee here. So this employee is already set up for state campaign. And it's effective 1/9/2022. They take on all pay groups, and this actually for multiple jobs, but it's set up by default. And then the calculation routine, you have to select a calculation routine here. Here is the state campaign is set up as flat amount. If it's set up as flat amount, then you have to put in the amount here. Some of the options that is being used is default to deduction table. When that is selected, then the calculation, the calc looks at the deduction table for to calculate the deduction.
That's gonna be like in our victims housing and, the VDVE are set up at a default percentage at the table. Kofi, on this one though, the flat amount, is that the monthly amount? Is that field calculated on a monthly?
It's per paycheck.
It's bi-weekly here. Okay.
Bi-weekly. Yep. And then over here as well, we have the goal amount. So you can set up a goal amount for this deduction. So if it's 5,000, and then once payroll is being confirmed, the goal balance will be accumulated. Once that amount is equal to the goal amount, the deduction stops. Or again, you can enter deduction end date to end the deduction. This you will not see on the pay sheet, but you will see it on the calc when the pay calc runs.
Yeah. Who has PIN products? INID?
Me.
You do, okay. So that is something you will have to set up at DVE for every new inmate, and we'll revise the AS 47 form.
Mm-hmm.
So that they'll still have to send that for general deductions, so that you know to set this up.
Okay.
Should we look through the benefit deduction? Because there are two types of deductions.
Right, so, benefit deductions, you won't be doing anything, your group will not be doing anything, except to make sure that, yes, go through the benefit deduction, and if you can wrap up GANs, that's fantastic, otherwise we'll visit garnishments when you come back. But we won't dwell on it too much, we'll just go through it very quickly, what the main fields are, that should be. Okay, it's 11:26, we'll go through, benefit deductions. If at all possible, we'll start the conversation on garnishments, and that will bring us to the end of section 2 of this webinar. Section 3 is all about payroll processing, which I would really like us to, get our teeth into. Yeah, go ahead. Don't spend more than 10 minutes on the benefit deductions. Just tell them where they can go and look at it, and then we'll go to the GAN spec data.
Okay. So for benefit deductions, you'll go to Navigator, benefits, and to review employees' benefits, you click on the review employee benefits, and then benefit summary. So let me see whether I still have my employee here. Click on search, and then I select the employee, and then that opens the summary page. So this shows you all the benefit plans that employee is set up for, the non-tobacco, medical, HSA, dental, vision, and all the 457 RAF. It gives you, you can drill down here to review. We're drilling down on medical. This gives you the information on what the plan that the employee is enrolled in, and if the coverage, whether it's employee only or employee plus spouse or dependent, the group number. Going to get out here. There's a deduction summary. Also, this shows you there's no payroll deduction for this employee, but this should give you a listing of all the deductions that have been calculated and confirmed for the employee. There should be a grade over here giving you the listing of the deductions. All right, next we can look at the individual setup plans, pages for the employee. You go to the enroll in benefits. So employees health benefits. So this is the this is where the benefits for the health benefits is set up, whether the employees are elected or waived or termed.
Yeah, we won't see this,
Only
Kofi,
the summary.
just the summary.
Yeah. All right.
We will see the retirement and the pension though.
Okay. So there's similar setup for life AD&D. Let's take a look here. Then we can go to savings plan. Shows the 457 setup. So here employee setup for 15% deduction.
So you would see deferred comp here if it was just the normal deferred comp, right? And you won't see match. And you will not see the match because it's one plan. It attaches that match to it. Good point.
So do you see the total amount then of the contribution plus the match? Or no?
We would see that in balances in
Okay.
payroll, yeah. Or in, like, the year-to-date balance, that's what you're,
Okay.
Okay. So I'll go to retirement plans.
well, you would see the biweekly if it was right there.
Okay.
How he showed percent, there would be a amount.
It's there.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Kofi, go ahead.
So you were saying that the payroll admin will do the setup?
No, it defaults in, but we will have the access to go in here and view and, I guess, correct it
Okay.
if we need.
Right. So all the benefits setup is housed in the enrolling benefits. So you have access for review and troubleshooting what happens on the check.
Great.
So we don't set up her for retirement plans or anything anymore, right? They auto. Yeah.
SPD owns all of those now, and their Ben admin process will determine the eligibility and processing. Where you are getting into the troubleshooting part of it is when you see the the pre-sheet audit or the pre-calc audit, you'll find benefit errors relating to if an employee has got HSA deductions and there's not enough money to, or deferred comp deductions, and there's not enough money to support those deductions, you will get accumulator 457 error or accumulator sum error, which says basically employee has insufficient funds to pay for the deductions. And that's when if it's insufficient funds, you look to see if time and labor has got the information coming in, and it hasn't come in, or the time has not come in and has not been paid. If it's supposed to come from Bishop load, why was it not in the file to load this employee's earnings? That's the triage that you have to do. If it is some other benefits error, you'll have to escalate it to someone like Laura GMIS or Jennifer Peshke, and ask them to have it troubleshot. Some of it might escalate to somebody like Pramod, who would be looking at the benefits data, right?
Yeah.
These are your plans of action.
Yeah, we would send it to benefits and then they decide to go to promote.
Yes.
Yeah,
We wouldn't.
right.
Probably.
Is there a ticket for that, or it's just a conversation?
We still have to have a conversation if they do have a group email right now that we send. Yeah, we want to talk to the benefits team, Jennifer and Christy Tittle, to figure out how do they want to get they don't probably want 10 of us sending things out,
Yeah.
right? So we need to come up with what's the best and efficient way, right? To communicate with them.
Okay, just a time check, we are at 11:34, and we've covered most of the section 2 relating to employee pay data. Do we want to just quickly go through garnishments, recap, and then the break for lunch?
Sure.
Okay.
And then we can come back and I want to talk through section 3, which talks about, basically, if you look at my screen, we've got the overview on payroll processing, and I want to just make sure that I socialize with you the setups we have done.
You're cutting into Kofi's drawing time.
I know. I'm taking 1 minute. He's my buddy. Okay, so we do look at the configuration that you're going to you may have read access to actually kind of troubleshoot it. Earnings and deductions, you may actually have to set it up. We haven't quite decided whether the responsibility will be with AOS or with GMIS for updating earnings, and deductions kind of information. It will be with you, right?
Yeah.
You'll be doing it.
Yeah, we'll all have part of the RACI, as you know.
Yeah.
Either working with them or being notified or,
Yeah, okay. So we'll go through some of the setups. I'll just go through them, in one swoop. And then we'll move to the checklist and do the end-to-end Thursday to Friday processing list. And after that, we can do post-production, post-payroll, and we can wrap it up. Okay, Kofi, I'm handing it back to you.
All right, thanks. So for garnishment, there are 2 pages that you should you will be using to set. So the agency gets the order, and then the order comes to the payroll admin, right? So the payroll admin will, for a new garnishment, will come to the create general deductions page here. So I'm going to pull an employee that already has a garnishment 242. Says it does have garnishment, but it doesn't. Anyways, so what you will do is there's a deduction code called garnish that needs to be set up for all set up for employees for any garnishment that then you get a court order for. So for this employee, let's set him up quickly. Yeah.
Right.
And it's only garnished one time, right, on an employee,
Right,
not for every order that they get.
right. And just you had, if you remember the U8 issue that you had, where you couldn't see the garnishment, that was because those employees did not have that one row on the general deduction table,
Yeah.
which had the garnish on it. Once we set it up, you were able to create the garnish. We were able to recap, and the garnishment came out. So it doesn't matter whether they have 2 child supports and 1 Chapter 11, 13, and an IRS levy, whatever it happens. Even if they have 4 garnishments, you'll have to set up 1 row of garnish for the deduction. So the PeopleSoft will only take out a deduction of garnish, and it will total the amounts to be deducted, but there is a separate section on the check which talks about GAN ID, GAN ID, GAN ID, GAN ID, okay?
Kofi, it may be better if you do go back and grab the person. I think you just had too many zeros in that person's ID.
Okay.
That way we can actually see the court information and all that.
So it's 242. Okay. Two. Yeah, it's still not set up. All right.
Do you want to
Okay.
pull some?
Yeah, let
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Somebody else through 5366.
Maybe we can take an existing GAN person and just add a garnishment.
Well, we've already seen this part, let's just move on to the Garn specs. and
Yeah.
Pull up Anthony Brooks.
Our favorite person. We look at him anytime we have a garnishment to discuss. Anthony Brooks without the middle initial.
Yeah, Brooks, last name. Anthony with no middle initial.
So, let's see. Yeah,
Yes. No,
The one before.
There's one above it.
one above it.
so there's one here. Oh,
No,
sorry.
that's Anthony.
Anthony Brooks.
Up above, oh,
Down one,
down one, sorry, Kobe.
156.
There you go.
All right. Okay, so we can use this employee and go back to the general deductions table. So this is how the setup should look like. When you choose the deduction code, this section will be grayed out except the effective date when the garnishment should be effective. And this date should match the Gantt spec table here. All right, so once we set this up, navigate to the Gantt spec, the create garnishment component. So there are 7 tabs in here. The first tab is it's where you set up a garnishment ID. So for example, this employee has a child support. So the conversion is, CHSUP and then 1. Employee may have multiple, so we can set up another one for CHSUP2 and so on. The status needs to be set to first approved, and then the receive and the receive date and the date that you responded needs to be filled out. The garnishment type needs to be set up. There are different types. There's Chapter 13, child support, dependent support, the spousal support, student loans, tax levy, wage assignment, and rate of garnishment. So the garnishment type should be set up, and then you have to select the current order for the support type. And then the court document ID needs to be entered here, and then the name of the court. Next. Gantt spec data 2. Gantt spec data 2 is where you set up the vendor ID. If you're not using, so State of Indiana is not using the ETF process, so the vendor IDs have been defined in the system. So here you select the vendor ID, the location, and the remit address. Next tab shows where the schedule and the priority needs to be set up. Thing for the state, Shuba, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not using the deduct by schedule.
No.
It's just the deduct on all payrolls.
Correct.
So that needs to be selected. And for priority, there is a standard that needs to be followed. So for example, for all child supports, you'll want to start with a priority range, right? So for example, this is 5. And then when another child support comes in, then that will be 6 all the way through, for example, 10. And then from 11 through 15 will be rates of garnishment. So that needs to be defined and followed. The system uses this field to differentiate which garnishment to take out in terms of priority. The limitations for the states, are we setting a limit amount or it's what comes on the order?
What comes on the order?
So whatever is on the order should be entered here as the limit amount. The limit balance is maintained by the system. So when the check is confirmed, this limit balance is updated with the deduction, the garnishment deduction that has been taken. Next. So for this garnishment, the deduction calc is normally a percent of disposable income plus the amount. Disposable earnings plus the amount. And then the frequency should be set to monthly. The calc knows to take half of this for the bi-weekly. I believe we're not using the processing fees, but there's a garnishment fee set up instead.
Right, we're not using.
Yep.
Okay.
The child support fee is actually a separate GAN ID by itself.
And it's not that type of fee.
No, yeah, that's right.
All right, so the next tab is the schedule. As we mentioned, we're not using the schedule. So this page, you don't have to enter anything here. GAN specs data 6 is the page where you set the law source as Indiana rule ID. So this is for the support and dependent. So choose that. And then the definition ID is defaulted.
Right.
So that rule ID for child support is the 50, 55, 60, 65, depending on,
Right.
yeah,
And it's already set up in the rule delivered by PeopleSoft.
yeah. So there's
Um,
options in the drop down.
Yeah. And what you do at the bottom, the exception parameters, those are overrides to what is by default provided by the rule. Then the next one, we need to be a bit careful on garnishment 7. The proration rules, we couldn't find anything that's relevant to Indiana, but the pay mode and the AP payment, the check date, those 3 are important fields. Pay as deducted, AP separate payment, separate AP payment, and AP payment date type, check date. Those 3 fields must be filled out.
Do those default in that way already?
I think this is the converted data, and Greg has been putting it in. Otherwise, it was impacting our AP interface.
Okay.
I have provided Paula the rules, the query on the rules. You still have that?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can post it one place where you can see it. Okay, have we covered GANSPEC data? Any questions on GANSPEC data?
Yep, we're good.
Do we feel like breaking early for lunch and then coming back at maybe 12:45 or one, so we can start the config.
Yeah, but if we break right now, Erica's gonna say be back at 12:50.
Erica?
12:49.
It's 11:50, well, it's 11:49, so we're shooting at 11:50. We have it blocked for an hour, so if you guys want to come back earlier, that's fine, and we can end earlier for the day. But still want to really just get a temperature of the group, just to understand, because if everyone's willing to move forward with a 45-minute lunch, I say go for it, so you can end earlier. If not, and people need the hour, just take the hour.
Everybody want the hour, I assume?
Yeah, they all want to walk. They just want
They
to
like
walk.
to have an hour. They're not like Shannon and myself.
We like to eat.